the legendary northern black-haired Duke stands amidst frost and berries, a man so cold he probably uses liquid nitrogen as cologne. In a quiet moment, the black-haired boy looks up and asks for the scoop on this infamous Frosty Duke character. Smiling warmly over her book, the pink-haired woman tells the boy he's basically looking at his own chilly future self. The black-haired boy isn't sold on the idea, wondering why anyone would choose a life of permanent brain freeze. She laughs joyfully among the flowers, making the prospect of becoming a stoic ice king sound surprisingly like a spring picnic. Fast forward to the nursery, where the pink-haired baby reaches out from her crib with a tiny, hopeful, up-wah-wah sounding. A dark memory of a fatal car accident flashes by, proving that even a tragic backstory can't stop a reincarnation plot. Waking up as a baby in a flowery fantasy world is the ultimate cliché, but hey, at least the rent is free. The blonde woman holds her new pink-haired bundle of joy, proving that the afterlife comes with excellent skin-to-skin bonding time. A brown-haired maid storms in to kill the vibe, scolding the blonde woman for neglecting the mysterious young master's side. The blonde woman, Judy, stands her ground, reminding the help that even a nurse has her own baby to cuddle. A loud bang echoes as the maid storms out, warning Judy to get back before the Duke decides to play disciplinarian. The pink-haired baby wonders if she's a secret princess or just a commoner waiting for a dramatic birth reveal plot twist. Judy decides it's take your baby to work day, warning her tiny daughter to keep the waterworks to a minimum in the nursery. The pink-haired baby gives a determined nod, mentally swearing off crying because being a fussy infant is just too messy. A soft, worried "Abu" escapes her lips as she prepares for her first official royal encounter in this strange new world. They step into a desolate, cavernous hallway that looks like it was decorated by a professional haunted house designer. Looking out the window, they watch the sky dump snow like it's trying to set a new world record for misery. A massive, icy castle looms in the distance, perfectly matching the Duke's reputation for being a total human refrigerator. Her breath hitches with a soft "ha" as she catches her first glimpse of the man, the myth, the legend. There he is, the northern black-haired Duke, looking like he hasn't smiled since the dawn of time itself. Meanwhile, the sunny prince stands in golden glory, acting as the perfect, glittery rival to our resident Duke of Darkness. Life for the Duke is a bloody mess of monster hunting and zero social life, basically the ultimate introverted warrior's dream. Judy nervously asks what's wrong, probably hoping the Duke isn't about to banish them to the nearest snowbank for breathing. The Duke notes the baby's fearless stare, while she realizes she might have accidentally challenged him to a staring contest. She decides his gaze is only scary on paper, treating him like a fictional character to avoid a total baby meltdown. The Duke drops a cold etiquette lesson, reminding Judy that even calling his name is a major social no-no. He stalks away into the shadows, leaving the room several degrees colder, and everyone wondering if he ever blinks. The baby's internal gears turn as she realizes it turns out Judy left her post because of her baby, yet the Duke still hired her as a nurse. Protecting her mom, the baby lets out a fierce mama blue that's about as threatening as a basket of fluffy kittens. She quickly realizes her attempt at intimidation was a total fail, given that her most dangerous weapon is her cuteness. The Duke continues his dramatic exit, probably off to go sit in a dark room and think about cold things. Sucking her thumb, the baby decides that royal politics are way more confusing than just figuring out how to crawl. She starts hyping up the Duke's son, expecting him to be a pint-sized heartbreaker with world-class brooding genes. In her head, she's already imagining a soft-hearted beauty, clearly having spent too much time on the romance webtoon apps. Judy notices a draft and realizes a window was left open, proving that even castle staff can be total slackers. Shivering in the cold, Judy worries the young master will turn into a popsicle before they can even find a blanket. The baby looks around, wondering if this medieval fantasy world ever bothered to invent a thermostat or basic floor heating. They finally enter the young master's room, which is so luxurious it makes their previous living quarters look like a closet. Even a poor northern castle is dripping in gold and flowers, which is exactly why everyone loves a good fantasy world. A frantic wah erupts from the crib as the black-haired baby wakes up and chooses violence against everyone's eardrums. The pink-haired baby is unimpressed, judging the future Duke's weak cry like she's a seasoned critic at a toddler talent show. Judy gasps as she realizes the poor kid's cheeks are literally frozen, which is one way to keep a baby quiet. Heart pounding with excitement, the pink-haired baby leans in to see if the young master lives up to the hype. A tiny, dramatic gasp escapes her as she finally comes face to face with her new, very loud, very blue-eyed roommate. The black-haired baby stares back with tear-filled eyes, looking like a miniature version of the Duke with much better lungs. It's love at first sight, or at least extreme admiration, as the pink-haired baby starts drooling over the sheer cuteness. Judy pulls the freezing infant close for some much-needed warmth, while the pink-haired baby watches the bonding moment in awe. The black-haired baby lets out a joyful kya as he finally warms up, officially winning over his tiny new pink-haired fan. With a thunderous boom sounding, the pink-haired baby's dramatic entrance is interrupted by her own sudden, wide-eyed realization. Judy beams while holding baby Setsu, who lets out a joyful kya as he officially becomes the cutest heir in history. The pink-haired baby's face flushes with pure adoration, proving that even as an infant, she's a total sucker for a cute face. Baby Setsu crawls toward his favorite person with determination, while Minelli greets him with a cheerful boo-boo from across the rug. Minelli is absolutely smitten by how affectionate the little master is, her eyes sparkling like she just won the baby lottery. Judy smiles warmly, narrating the grand reveal that this adorable black-haired bundle is actually Setsu Alkaman, the Grand Duke's official heir. The two tiny roommates sit together in peaceful baby bliss, blissfully unaware of the dramatic fantasy tropes awaiting their future. A sudden, heavy thump sounding catches Minelli off guard, leaving her half surprised and wondering if the plot just thickened or someone dropped a pacifier. A romantic vision flashes by, describing a tragic love story where a blonde woman falls for the frail and timid Duke Setsu. Baby Setsu stares with wide, innocent blue eyes, looking far too precious to ever grow into a cold, brooding northern ruler. Looking at his tiny face, Minelli feels her heart ache more than it did in the novel, proving real-life cuteness is dangerous. A somber memory reveals a man failing to protect Canaria, framed by shattered glass and the heavy weight of a tragic backstory. Little Setsu beams with a smile so bright it could probably melt the entire northern glacier in a single afternoon. Minelli finds herself completely struck by the love bug, her tiny heart officially captured by the sheer power of baby-faced charm. She makes a solemn vow to raise Setsu into the perfect black-haired Grand Duke, because every romance novel needs a glow-up. Amidst a flurry of flowers, she commits to ensuring his happily ever after with the heroine, playing the ultimate long-term wingwoman role. Time flies as Minelli grows into a girl with glorious pink curls, looking like a total protagonist in her purple dress. She flashes a confident grin, clearly embracing her life as the young master's most trusted and stylish companion. Setsu has leveled up too, transforming into a handsome boy with sharp blue eyes and a very future male lead aesthetic. Minelli continues to radiate main character energy, her pink hair and bows proving that growing up suits her perfectly. Framed by flowers, the young master Setsu looks like a masterpiece, finally living up to his pint-sized heartbreaker destiny. The two bicker over their tiny age gap, with Minelli using New Year logic to claim the official big sister title. Setsu lets out a flustered as he blushes, clearly losing the argument against his very persistent and curly-haired friend. A sudden gah sounding echoes as Minelli dramatically clutches her chest, falling victim to an overdose of the young master's cuteness. Ever the gentleman, Setsu offers to blow on her heart to make it better, blissfully unaware of how smooth that line was. The arrow of love strikes again as Minelli literally spits out blood from the sheer adorableness of his innocent offer. She can't resist a cheek smooch, shouting "Setsu" as she celebrates his status as the cutest boy in the frozen north. The palace maids gossip about the rude display, wondering if the pink-haired girl realizes she's being way too casual with royalty. An older maid clarifies that Minelli is the young master's official playmate, effectively shutting down the judgment with high-status facts. They discuss how the once fussy Setsu only ever smiles and stops crying when his favorite pink-haired companion is around him. Minelli reflects on her hard work as a big sister since birth, basically acting as a toddler-sized bodyguard and nanny. Memories show Setsu's obsession, demanding the same food, clothes, and even the same room as Minelli since they were both babies. She prides herself on changing his sickly novel fate, ensuring they both grew up healthy through the power of friendship and snacks. Setsu tilts his head with a confused question mark as he wonders why his best friend is currently lost in her own thoughts. He asks about the meaning of a lucky charm, and she sweetly explains that he represents all the good fortune in her life. The young master looks genuinely touched, his blue eyes widening as the weight of her sweet words finally sinks in. He reciprocates the hug, declaring Minelli is his lucky charm too, and that having her makes him the happiest boy alive. As they snuggle, Minelli decides she has officially won at life, having successfully secured the world's most adorable future duke. Setsu admires her pink hair, comparing it to sugar and rabbits, while Minelli wonders where he's even seeing pink sugar. She laughs off the pink sugar comment, questioning where such a fancy and sweet thing would even exist in their world. Setsu spills the tea about Loki's secret Easter stash, mentioning pink sugar meant for a special holiday bunny project. Minelli is floored, realizing that in the snowy north, sugar is worth its weight in gold, especially rare, pink-colored sugar. Despite his protests about secrets, she drags him toward the forbidden sugar stash, proving she's the leader of this tiny rebellion. Setsu suddenly stops in his tracks, his gaze fixed on something mysterious that shouldn't be in the hallway. Minelli turns with a curious question mark as she senses the shift in the atmosphere, wondering what just killed their sugar hunting vibe. Her eyes widen in genuine shock as she catches sight of the massive problem currently looming over their secret mission. A soft "ah" escapes her lips as the realization hits her. They are very, very caught and very, very in trouble. The two children freeze in the darkness as the towering, ominous shadow of the Grand Duke himself looms directly behind them. Narrative boxes detail the Grand Duke's tragic history, orphaned young, guarding a desolate land, and losing his wife during childbirth. Minelli analyzes the Duke's emotional constipation, realizing he's actively dodging every blessing life throws his way. Fists clenched, Minelli vows to fix this dysfunctional family tree because professional meddling is apparently her toddler-sized calling. The looming Duke catches them in the hallway, forcing Minelli to pivot to a sugar-based lie for immediate survival. She turns on the innocent charm, lying about being unbothered with a smile that screams, "I'm definitely up to something." Minelli worries she was a bit too sassy for a commoner, while Setsu looks like he just lost his favorite pacifier. The Duke glides away with a dramatic cape flutter, leaving the children standing in his icy and emotionally distant wake. Setsu stares at his father's back with a look of pure, concentrated rejection that would break a heart of stone. That was the final straw. Minelli's face twists into a scowl that could probably peel paint off the castle walls. Risking a dungeon sentence, she bellows at the Duke, demanding he show an ounce of interest in his son's preferences. The pink-haired firecracker continues her verbal assault, calling out the Duke for being the world's most silent, brooding parent. The Duke keeps walking like he's deaf to commoner complaints, leaving Minelli fuming at his total lack of parental vibes. Setsu stares at his fearless friend in absolute shock, probably wondering if she's actually a tiny, curly-haired Suicide Squad member. Minelli reflects on the Duke's bizarre habit of only acknowledging her, effectively ghosting his own heir in his presence. She stares down the hallway with a look of grim determination, officially declaring war on the Duke's terrible communication skills. A sharp gasp escapes both children as they realize the Duke is really just going to walk away from that roast. A heavy, rhythmic thump sounding follows the Duke as Minelli tries one last desperate shouting plea for his attention. Furious, she yells that the least he could do is act startled by her blatant disrespect, but the man remains unflappable. Minelli has a full-on tantrum over the Duke's coldness, while Setsu desperately tries to prevent her from exploding entirely. Seeing her friend's sad face, she realizes the emotional damage is real and switches from rage mode to sympathy mode. Setsu flashes a radiant smile, admitting that seeing her get angry on his behalf is actually the highlight of his week. Minelli wipes away a frustrated tear, exhausted by a man who refuses to speak the universal language of not being a jerk. Setsu blushes furiously, his heart clearly doing backflips because he finally has someone willing to fight his battles. The young master looks at her with stars in his eyes, having officially promoted her from nanny to soulmate. Minelli gently calls out to him, her heart softening as she realizes her big sister mission is going a bit too well. She tackles him in a hug, blaming the Duke's poor life choices, while Setsu tries his best to keep the peace. Returning the embrace, Setsu whispers that she's his ultimate lucky charm, essentially sealing their fate in romance novel ink. She smiles, satisfied that her rearing tactics are working, even if her pupil is becoming dangerously charming way too fast. Minelli cups his cheek with a tenderness that proves she's definitely the protagonist of this northern soap opera. Surrounded by flowers, she makes a sacred vow that no one could ever hate him, including his emotionally stunted father. Setsu offers a smile so pure it's practically a health hazard, clearly fully invested in whatever Minelli says. Looking like a literal angel among blooms, Minelli basks in the success of her Save the Young Master campaign. She hugs him close, internally screaming about how he's the most beautiful and sweet-hearted boy in the entire world. A memory of baby Minelli reveals her lifelong commitment to being the loudest, pinkest presence in the Alchemand castle. The two toddlers sit together in a bed of lilies, a tiny portrait of friendship that's almost too precious for words. Smiling brightly, Minelli calls his name, her pink curls bouncing with the pure energy of a girl winning at life. Setsu looks stunned as Minelli teases him about his no sweets rule, acting like she's the ultimate authority on castle nutrition. She winks and wiggles a finger, declaring today a special sugar-allowed holiday because she's the one making the rules now. Setsu is absolutely mesmerized, looking at her like she just invented fire, sugar, and the concept of fun simultaneously. Minelli notices his intense staring and asks what's up, completely unaware of the critical hit of cuteness she just delivered. The young master gazes back with an expression so soft and adoring it should probably come with a warning label. He breaks into a dazzling, flowery laugh, looking every bit like the world-class heartbreaker he was always destined to be. Game-style one-hit and two-hit pop-ups confirm that Minelli is taking massive emotional damage from Setsu's sheer cuteness. A painful ugh escapes her as a critical hit lands, leaving Setsu bewildered while she dramatically clutches her heart. She gasps out a request for him to turn around, needing a moment to recover from his weaponized handsomeness. Setsu giggles to himself, concluding that his best friend is preciously peculiar, which is polite speak for adorable weirdo. His eyes narrow with a secret smirk, realizing his father actually did one thing right by bringing her home. A long, high-pitched creak sounding fills the air as the children creep into the dark and silent castle kitchen. Minelli puts a finger to her lips, signaling for stealth while Setsu follows her lead like a well-trained puppy. Their mission is aborted mid-stride as a massive hand suddenly yanks Minelli up by her collar, like a misbehaving kitten. A scarred, bearded man bellows at them, catching the thieving cat red-handed in his domain before she can reach the sugar. The scarred chef dangles Minelli by her collar like a naughty kitten while Setsu watches with wide-eyed shock. The chef bellows about her food-sneaking habits, threatening to teach the pink-haired menace some desperately needed kitchen manners. Thinking fast, Minelli points toward the young master, reminding the angry man that she's currently in very high-status company. A sudden whap sound fills the room as the chef drops Minelli instantly, panicking over his unintentional disrespect toward royalty. Setsu calmly explains his cocoa craving while Minelli offers a victorious huff, clearly enjoying her tiny, aristocratic get-out-of-jail-free card. The chef performs an Olympic-level 180, bowing and scraping while insisting the young master can roam the castle as he pleases. Minelli stares in disbelief at the chef's instant personality transplant, crossing her arms at his blatant and shameless favoritism. The chef gets defensive, lecturing Minelli on the massive social gap between her and the future Duke of the North. They bicker over her irritating personality, which she proudly claims is a genetic gift from her equally stubborn father. A chilling creak sounding follows as a wave of sudden coldness washes over Minelli, making her hair stand on end. She turns with a start, wondering why the atmosphere just took a nosedive into the uncanny valley of awkward tension. Setsu offers a smile so radiant it practically has its own background lighting, looking like the world's most precious angel. Minelli is totally thrown off by his sudden warmth, questioning why he was acting like a miniature ice cube earlier. She laughs off the chef's intensity, mockingly questioning who would ever want to be friends with such a scary, scarred man. A rhythmic tremble sounding shakes the chef as he shakes with fear, desperately denying any friendship with the tiny firecracker. Minelli innocently asks if the chef's weird behavior is due to accidentally taking the wrong constipation medicine, delivering a sick burn. Thoroughly defeated, the chef retreats into the shadows, muttering about making cocoa just to escape her relentless verbal assaults. Outdoors in the crisp snow, Minelli celebrates her cocoa victory and the pleasant weather with her favorite little master. She credits Setsu for her luxurious lifestyle, looking up at the towering, snow-dusted castle walls with a satisfied grin. Setsu glows with happiness, surrounded by an imaginary field of flowers as he basks in her sweet, appreciative words. Their stroll is interrupted by a brown-haired boy in earmuffs who calls out to them from the snowy garden path. The new boy, Lin, greets them with a bright and friendly smile that rivals the morning sun in the north. Minelli trots over to him, immediately interrogating him about the massive gardening scissors hanging from his tiny, hard-working waist. Lin explains he's helping out with the garden chores, winning Manelli over with his diligent and helpful good boy energy. Framed by a halo of blossoms, Lin looks like the picture-perfect helpful neighbor boy from a wholesome children's book. Manelli is impressed, mentally filing Lin away as a prime candidate for her future potential husband list, just in case. Lin insists the hard gardening work is actually nothing, while Setsu watches the exchange from the background with growing silence. Setsu's blue eyes narrow slightly as he asks about their relationship, clearly wondering why they seem so suspiciously close. Manelli explains that Lin is the guard captain's son, destined to become a legendary knight and protector of the realm. An awkward silence sounding hangs over the trio as the two boys stare each other down in the snowy courtyard. Manelli apologizes for Setsu's social awkwardness, assuming he's just too shy to handle meeting a cool new friend like Lin. Lin waves his hands in a frantic, polite denial, insisting it's perfectly fine and that he doesn't mind at all. The brown-haired boy bows and takes his leave, leaving the children alone again in the quiet, frozen garden. Manelli gushes about how fun Lin is, completely unaware that she's currently poking the bear of Setsu's internal jealousy. She continues her internal monologue about loyalty, while Setsu looks like he's contemplating turning Lin into a permanent ice sculpture. A narrative flashback reveals Lin's future as Setsu's most devoted knight commander, protecting the sickly duke with his life. She hypes up Lin's future swordsmanship, predicting he'll even surpass his famous father in skill and legendary knightly cool points. As she lists Lin's virtues, Setsu looks increasingly distressed, clearly not enjoying the competition for his best friend's attention. Manelli's heart skips a beat as she realizes Setsu is actually jealous, finding his possessive little face absolutely top-tier adorable. Struck by a bling of inspiration, she realizes the sheer power of Setsu's cuteness is her ultimate secret weapon. Setsu blushes furiously, asking if acting like the kind and cheerful Lin would make her like him even more. He gazes at her with a look of pure, soul-piercing vulnerability that would make even a stone statue weep with joy. A joyful kya sounding erupts from Manelli as she finally hits her emotional limit for how cute one boy can be. A soft squish sounding follows as she grabs his face, unable to resist his perfectly soft and pinchable cheeks. She marvels at his mochi-like skin, declaring that absolutely no one could ever hate a boy as beautiful as him. Her eyes light up with a sudden, mischievous realization, having just devised the ultimate character arc for her little protege. She demands he grow into the stereotypical, cold, blunt Grand Duke of the North, because that's what the readers crave. Setsu tilts his head in total confusion, wondering why he needs to be cold when he's currently feeling so warm. Manelli celebrates her brilliance with a happy dance, already imagining the world-class heartbreaker her rearing tactics will eventually create. Manelli recovers from her cuteness overload, admitting she's already dizzy imagining the dangerously handsome adult Setsu will become. The pink-haired girl admits she isn't interested in general charity. Her protection services are currently exclusive to one person. Manelli aggressively lectures Setsu on the cold Duke of the North aesthetic, insisting he must cherish his lands like himself. Setsu is clearly confused by her tropes, but promises to try his best simply because Manelli is there. Overflowing with pink energy, she vows to stay by his side until he's finally happy, which is basically forever. Setsu hits her with a tiny, jealous reality check, noting she seems to have a soft spot for the cheerful Lin. Manelli brushes off the jealousy, swooning over the thought of Setsu growing into a perfectly charming, stoic northern ruler. A dramatic silhouette hints at a future where Setsu remains cold to the world, but vulnerable to his one person. Setsu watches silently as Minelli gets lost in her Grand Duke training fantasies, looking completely unfazed by her intensity. The training session ends in a nap as Minelli collapses over her sketches, snoring amidst her messy charcoal masterpieces. Setsu leans in with a mischievous smirk, delivering the ultimate burn by telling her she's actually terrible at drawing. He critiques her Great Northern Duke portrait, pointing out it's basically just a giant, menacing black scribble with a sword. Totally zonked out, Minelli is completely unaware she's currently wearing a stylish smudge of charcoal on her pink cheek. His expression softens into a look of pure adoration, finding her messy, sleeping face more captivating than any professional art. In A Flowery Vision, a mature, smiling version of Minelli embodies the pure radiance that has completely captivated the young master. Setsu wonders how such a bright person could exist in his frozen world, framed by the weight of his own destiny. A sleepy ong sounding escapes her as she shifts, proving she's more of a cute toddler than a legendary visionary. Setsu offers another soft smile, clearly accepting his fate as the personal guardian of this pink-haired, charcoal-covered disaster. A gentle hand strokes her hair as Minelli dreams about her next big plot, her pink curls framing her peaceful face. The mood shifts as the real Grand Duke appears, looking every bit the tall, dark, and intimidating Father of the Year candidate. With a rhythmic tramp sounding, the Duke approaches, declaring he's only here to collect the sleeping, pink-haired, thieving cat. Setsu looks horrified as his stoic father scoops Minelli up, treating the girl like a sack of royal potatoes. Turning his back, the Duke coldly accuses Minelli's mother of using the child as a pawn to extort the family. A dark, crackling energy surrounds Setsu as he snaps at his father, demanding he leave the innocent duo alone. The Duke ignores the outburst, looking down at the sleeping girl who is blissfully unaware of the family drama above her. He challenges Setsu's anger, questioning if the boy is actually planning to carry the heavy toddler all by himself. Walking away with his prize, the Duke internally admits he just wants to express his feelings, however awkwardly. He looks back over his shoulder, the cold Duke facade cracking just enough to show he's paying attention. Minelli wakes up in bed, rubbing her eyes and complaining that the morning sun is being far too aggressive. Her mother is startled by her own reflection, probably wondering how she ended up in this northern soap opera. Minelli tackles her mom with a hug, jokingly asking if some handsome man finally called her pretty today. Her mother gazes into the distance, struck by a sudden, melancholy realization of how much time has slipped away. Eyes sparkling with hope, Minelli asks if she finally gets a dad, completely unaware she was carried by one yesterday. The mother looks down at her daughter, her expression a complex mix of love and the weight of secrets kept. Minelli gets dressed up in a fancy purple gown, her mind racing with the possibilities of a legal family connection. She ponders the Duke's stoic nature, marveling at the fact that such a stiff man actually knew how to compliment her mom. During bath time, her mother recalls her impulsive flight from her hometown, fueled by a lack of trust and self-worth. Toddler Minelli splashes around, connecting the dots and asking if that's exactly where her mother met her mysterious father. A soft splash sounding follows as her mother falls silent, her gaze turning distant as she avoids the difficult question. A snowy memory reveals a tender moment where the Duke wiped away her mother's tears, offering comfort without words. Her mother stares at the flowers, the bittersweet realization that her understanding of his feelings came much too late. In a bed of lavender blossoms, toddler Minelli listens as her mother hopes she'll never regret her own life choices. Her mother looks surprised, perhaps taken aback by the sheer intelligence and perceptiveness of her pink-haired little fireball. The moment ends with a warm, loving smile, reinforcing the bond that kept them together through their northern exile. Minelli decides that becoming a legal sibling to Setsu is a brilliant move for her long-term goal of total castle comfort. With a joyful bang sounding, she kicks the doors open to wish her favorite young master a very loud morning. The stern, bearded butler immediately kills the vibe, lecturing her on the social suicide of barging into royal bedrooms. Minelli is stunned into silence while a tiny chibi-style Setsu pops up to offer a surprisingly polite morning greeting. Setsu stands ready in heavy traveling furs, announcing he's being dragged along for the dangerous northern ice wall expedition. The scene shifts to the frozen border, where the Alchemand family performs their biannual inspection of the literal wall of ice. Setsu checks his new fluffy coat in the mirror, hoping his baby bear look is stylish enough to impress Minelli. He blushes furiously as Minelli calls him cute, immediately reversing the compliment back onto the pink-haired girl. Minelli beams with joy, while the butler stands in the background looking like he desperately needs a vacation. A rare, adorable giggle escapes the usually stoic young master, proving that he's a total sucker for her praise. Setsu realizes Minelli is coatless and orders the butler to fix that immediately because no bestie of his goes cold. Minelli aggressively rejects the gift, insisting her castle-dwelling lifestyle requires exactly 0% additional outerwear. Chibi Minelli delivers a cheeky wink to the butler, who is currently sweating bullets under his monocle. Setsu gives her the ultimate kicked puppy look, clearly heartbroken that she won't accept his attempt at toddler-level fashion. Minelli's internal "is it a scam?" meter redlines as she realizes just how much that fancy coat actually costs. Setsu insists she take it, while the butler watches the world's most polite tug-of-war unfold in the hallway. A stunned Minelli looks like she's just been hit with a cuteness overload debuff as she stares at her friend. Setsu doubles down on the charm, claiming she'd look great in anything and causing Minelli's brain to briefly short-circuit. Minelli laments the fate of northern dukes who lose the heroine because they're too busy being legendary gift-givers. Setsu warns a frostbite while Minelli quotes northern duke logic to dodge the gift, the ultimate battle of wits. Hand-waving and frantic denials ensue as she tries to escape the coat, while the butler adjusts his monocle. A relieved whew sounding escapes her as she hopes her secret meta-knowledge didn't just accidentally leak out. Setsu hits her with a firm, stoic, absolutely not, proving he's already mastered the art of being a blunt ruler. Confusion hangs in the air as Minelli stares at him, wondering why the temperature in the room just dropped. A sudden sounding of realization hits as Minelli connects the dots regarding the butler's suspicious knowledge. She realizes the butler is totally in on the secret romance between her mother and the intimidating duke. Blushing and giggling, she wonders how news of the northern soap opera spread faster than a winter flu. The vibe turns dark and edgy as a mysterious, shadowy voice asks exactly what she means by her previous claims. Setsu calls for the butler with a look of pure, unadulterated suspicion that would make a detective proud. The bright, flowery smile is Minelli's primary defense against the growing tension of the frozen northern household. She laughs away the tension, promising never to leave him for a moment, unaware she's feeding a future obsession. Internal narrative reveals the butler's struggle to balance loyalty with the stress of keeping the young master stable. The butler snaps back to duty, declaring the tailor must be visited immediately to prepare for the upcoming expedition. He looks stern and terrifying, warning that lying to him will lead to consequences far worse than a missed nap. Setsu's inner shadow spirit manifests as a massive snake, proving he's definitely not a boy you want to cross. The morning sun highlights the castle window while staff dish out the spicy tea about the Duke's overnight visitors. Maids whisper about shameless behavior as Minelli passes by, already pegging her as the future Grand Duchess. She remembers the original novel's secret meetings and realizes the current timeline has gone totally off the rails. Minelli worries that things are moving way too fast, especially since the negative reviews from the staff are rolling in. With a confident bang sounding, she kicks the doors open to check on her favorite moody young master. Setsu is found sitting in a dark room, looking like he's currently auditioning for a role in a gothic tragedy. A concerned tap-tap sounding of footsteps follows as Minelli asks if he just woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Setsu snaps at her to stay away, his face blushing with an intensity that suggests a major internal crisis. Minelli stops dead in her tracks, her brain buffering as she tries to process this sudden rejection. A shaky tremble sounding accompanies Setsu's demand for her to leave, showing he's clearly not in the mood for play. She stands frozen in shock, her world turning purple with confusion as her best friend pushes her away. Panic flares as she wonders if the scandalous rumors finally reached the one person who shouldn't have heard them. A divine illustration depicts Minelli as the literal sun, the only source of warmth in Setsu's frozen existence. Setsu's inner thoughts are a mess of possessiveness, admitting he likes her and simply cannot exist without her. A vision of toddler Minelli with a flower crown reinforces the idea that she should only ever look at him. A massive, ink-black shadow monster looms behind Setsu, representing the shadow spirit tied to his family bloodline. The Alchemin crest is revealed as the source of a monstrous pact that keeps the Grand Duke feared by everyone. The beast is a demon that feeds on human negativity, waiting for a heart to crumble so it can devour them. A grim box of text confirms that Setsu's mother was actually a snack for the shadow spirit during his birth. The butler realizes Setsu has been suppressing the literal devil just to avoid scaring his favorite pink-haired playmate. He shakes with fear, knowing that if Minelli becomes Setsu's sister and out of reach, the demon is coming out. Setsu's inner shadow snake hisses while he questions if his father is already plotting a remarriage. Talk about daddy issues. A nervous gulp sounding as the butler sweats bullets, probably realizing his retirement fund depends on this chaotic family. Minelli tries to process the incoming gossip, realizing that survival in this castle requires a master's degree in social politics. A week of being ghosted by her bestie has Minelli looking like she's currently starring in a tragic bedtime musical. She flails. Her internal monologue reaches peak drama, claiming she raised him like her own child, which is impressive for a 5-year-old. Chibi Minelli kicks and screams, begging for just one shred of communication in this frozen, silent household of doom. She shivers with rage, reminding the universe that she's also just a kid who deserves attention and fewer cold shoulders. After a week of rolling around, she's torn between trusting Setsu and wondering if she's been unfriended for good. A single, dramatic tear rolls down her cheek as she realizes being a potential stepsister is harder than it looks. Her self-pity is interrupted by a sudden creak, sounding as a familiar face finally decides to make an appearance. Blonde-haired Lin pops into the room, apologizing for the intrusion like he didn't just walk into a midlife toddler crisis. Lin scratches his head, feeling awkward about barging in after his repeated knocks went completely ignored by the crying girl. Minellis's brain buffers as she stares at Lin, wondering if the plot just threw her another curveball while she was busy pouting. She is bombarded by confusing thoughts, looking like she just tried to solve a math problem involving family trees and dukes. Hiding under her blanket, she laments her fate, assuming Setsu simply doesn't want to see her commoner face anymore. Lin watches her with concern, guessing that the stepsister title is hitting a bit different than the best friend one. The scene shifts to a sunny room where the narrative suggests Setsu might just be overwhelmed by the sudden family expansion. Lin beams with a flowery smile, admitting he was actually thrilled at the prospect of her becoming the Duke's daughter. Minelli tilts her head in confusion, wondering why anyone would be happy about this chaotic northern soap opera. A flurry of peep-peep sounding chicks surround a blushing Lin as he struggles to explain his very pure, adorable feelings. He quickly pivots to business, revealing that the Duke has summoned the entire household for a very serious Great Hall meeting. They sit on the bed, realizing the remarriage might be finalized before the dangerous Ice Wall expedition even kicks off. Minelli ponders the speed of this romance, wondering if the Duke and her mom are speedrunning their relationship goals. She thanks Lin and prepares to bolt, because no toddler wants to miss the biggest announcement in the castle's history. Minelli sprints through the snowy courtyard, determined to witness the legal union that secures her lifelong castle comfort. A chilly ha sounding as she stops to catch her breath, her tiny frame dwarfed by the massive northern winter. Chibi Minelli shivers like a leaf, realizing that her cute coat strategy wasn't exactly designed for a literal blizzard. Her legs wobble in the deep snow, but she refuses to turn back before her mom leaves for the big ceremony. She spots her mother in the distance, who is currently looking like she's having a very emotional moment in the frost. Tears glisten on her mother's face as the weight of her new noble future finally starts to sink in. Minelli calls out, but stops short when she sees a dark-haired figure approaching her mom from the snowy shadows. The Duke pulls her mother into a protective embrace, proving that even a cold Duke has a very warm chest. Surrounded by roses, the two share a tender moment that looks straight out of a premium romance novel cover. Minelli watches from the sidelines, looking like a freezing popsicle, while her parents enjoy their dramatic, snowy, romantic reunion. Snow falls over a glowing moon, as the toddler realizes there's a lot about adult relationships she'll never understand. Back in bed, a feverish Minelli hides her illness, determined not to ruin the wedding with her own toddler germs. She tosses and turns, terrified that passing her cold to Setsu would be a bigger disaster than the actual ice wall. A sudden drip sounding hits her face as she wakes to find a teary-eyed Setsu hovering over her sickbed. Setsu cries silently, looking absolutely heartbroken while he watches over his friend during her sudden, snowy medical crisis. He asks if she's okay, his voice cracking with more emotion than he's shown in the last 7 days combined. Minelli offers a weak, loving smile, assuring her favorite young master that she'd never forget his crying, adorable face. Setsu tells her that a Northern Grand Duke must never cry, which is ironic considering his current tear-streaked face. She clutches her blanket, feeling guilty for being happy that the story's protagonist actually cares this much about her. A flurry of shake shake sounding as she tries to hide her blushing face from the boy's overwhelming concern. Setsu tries to hide his eyes, but Minelli calls him out for crying again, effectively ending his cold Duke training. A sharp clack sounding of trays as maids whisper about the absolute chaos currently unfolding within the castle walls. The staff gossips about the upcoming coronation of the new Grand Duchess, while Minelli's mom walks toward her destiny. The mother consults a bespectacled doctor, worried that the stress of the Ice Wall expedition might be too much. The doctor warns her to stay healthy, reminding her that becoming the lady of the house requires more than just tears. Minelli's mother weeps as the physician orders her to rest, promising she'll be treated with proper care. A feverish Minelli worries about Setsu's health, unaware her own toddler immune system is currently losing the war. She recalls Setsu's rare, beautiful smile, a memory that sparkles brighter than any northern diamond. In their matching nightgowns, Setsu demands she leave to avoid catching his cold, showing peak protective big brother energy. Manella's brain hits a snag as she realizes she just addressed her young master by his first name. Oops. The shock of her casual speech has Manelli questioning if this whole encounter is just a fever dream. A gentle tap sounding as a hand pat confirms it is indeed a dream, though a very vivid one. Manelli logic dictates that an ill Setsu wouldn't be in her room, concluding he must be safely tucked away. She hugs herself with a blissful smile, deciding that even a dream version of Setsu is worth the worry. The Duke stands in a blizzard, vowing to prevent the lonely, tragic future written in the original story. Manelli wallows under her blanket, blaming herself for Setsu being excluded from the dangerous Ice Wall expedition. Lin pops in to mention Uncle Loki is feeling lonely, sending Manelli into a state of visible confusion. Lin claims the terrifying chef sees her as his own daughter, prompting an epic, wide-eyed toddler, "Eh?" A hilarious vision of a battle-scarred Loki offering sweets proves that his version of fatherhood involves sugar and nightmares. Lin discusses the upcoming wedding, but Manelli remains unenthusiastic about her sudden promotion to future Grand Duchess. She insists she isn't the Duke's real daughter, even as Lin argues the man listens to her every word. Manelli pouts, recalling only a stern, frightening man, while Lin laughs off the Duke's resting grump face. Looking out the window, Manelli concludes that the Duke is largely responsible for ruining Setsu's childhood joy. A look of sheer determination crosses her face as she vows to prevent the Duke's death 3 years early. Lin jumps to his feet, promising to protect her, unaware he's already been recruited into her personal fan club. Manelli sparkles with confidence, noting that someone is clearly falling for her main character charms. She admits she doesn't regret anything, especially since Setsu's handsome face is a top-tier workplace benefit. Lin formally pledges his service, and Manelli gleefully accepts, proving she's the true boss of this household. A sudden, loud bang sounding as Loki bursts through the door, looking absolutely frantic and shouting Manelli's name. The world turns dark as Loki delivers the devastating news. Menelaus's mother has gone missing. A chilly whoosh sounding over the castle as Manelli wonders how her mother could vanish in a snowy fortress. The narrative confirms the ice wall has been accident-free for years until this very catastrophic moment. Sweating in terror, Manelli stares blankly, her mind racing to process the sudden collapse of her happy timeline. Dialogue reveals the Duke was swallowed by an avalanche while desperately trying to save Manelli's mother. Maids whisper in front of a portrait, wondering how the Duke could get lost in his own backyard. A quick, terrified gasp sounding as Manelli hides in the shadows, overhearing the staff's grim gossip. She realizes the Duke's death is happening 3 years early, effectively shattering the original novel's logic. Shaking with guilt, she wonders if her own actions accidentally cursed her parents to an early snowy grave. A dramatic thud sounding as the narrative highlights the portrait of a woman, signaling deep-seated family secrets. The portrait looms over the scene, a silent witness to the changing fate of the Alchemon household. Lin rushes to a collapsed Manelli, calling her name as she crumbles under the weight of the news. A shaky sounding as Lin asks if she's okay while she kneels in total despair. Manelli realizes the original novel never mentioned the Duke remarrying Judy, meaning the script is totally dead. A vision of the happy couple serves as a painful reminder that their love story caused this tragedy. She stares with hollow eyes, accepting that she is the one who broke the original story. Lin tries to comfort her, but Manelli's internal screams about her fault are making zero sense to him. Lin looks on in shock as Manelli realizes the novel's timeline has been accelerated by 3 years. Manelli buries her face in her hands, weeping as she realizes the future is now a total mystery. Setsu makes a grand entrance in his finest fur-lined coat, looking every bit the future Grand Duke. With one giant tear, Manelli looks up at her young master, hoping for a shred of good news. Setsu kneels and takes her hand, vowing that he will personally find her missing mother. Heroic! Manelli's hope flickers as she asks if he's really going to brave the blizzard for her. A firm grab sounding as she clutches his hand, reminding him he's still supposed to be on bed rest. Setsu confidently declares that only he can handle the spirit of darkness lurking in the frozen north. A soft shh sounding as he wipes away her tears, promising to return healthy from the expedition. Setsu offers a rare, heartwarming smile, telling Manelli not to get sick while she wonders when he became so dreamy. The butler urges the young master to move, and Setsu finally heads out into the cold, snowy unknown. Narrative text explains that Setsu's Spirit of Darkness is the ultimate search engine for finding lost people in massive blizzards. A colossal purple serpent emerges from the shadows, a terrifying guardian that demands an absurd amount of mana to control. Setsu stands alone against the swirling white void, looking like a tiny, fur-clad warrior ready to face the world. Back at the castle, a worried Manelli huddles on the floor, her toddler anxiety reaching absolute maximum capacity. She stares into the distance with watery eyes, terrified that the blizzard might swallow her favorite black-haired protagonist, too. The narrative shifts as the Spirit of Darkness finally locates the Duke and her mother, prompting a shocked reaction. 2 heavy wooden coffins sit silently in the snow, marking a grim end to the once promising northern romance. A heartbroken Manelli clings to her mother's cold form, sobbing over the tragic price of her meddling in the script. She stares at her mother's peaceful face, desperately wishing this was just a nap and not a permanent plot twist. Kneeling in the frozen dirt, the toddler drowns in guilt, convinced her shipping hobby just got her parents killed. Setsu approaches with a heavy heart, offering a sincere apology for failing to bring them back alive and well. Manelli grabs his hands, insisting that the young master has absolutely nothing to apologize for in this snowy mess. She cries out that it's all her fault, leaving a confused Setsu wondering why she's taking the blame for nature. Looking at the coffins, she realizes her meddling turned a non-canon romance into a literal death sentence for the couple. Setsu tries to comfort the weeping girl, reminding her that this tragedy isn't anyone's fault, despite her internal script panic. She weeps silently, knowing the original novel's timeline has been shattered and she has no idea what happens next. Narrative text warns that a greedy, cruel adult is about to arrive and make Setsu's life a living nightmare. A mysterious woman in a dramatic red cloak arrives at the castle, signaling that the era of misery has officially begun. A voice drips with malice as it identifies Manelli as that woman's daughter, and frankly, the vibes are immediately rancid. Setsu and Manelli turn to face the newcomer, both looking entirely unimpressed by the sudden intrusion on their grief. A chilly whoosh-sounding wind follows the silver-haired woman as she rudely asks if the children can even read her. She looms over them with a judgmental gaze, demanding to know if they recognize her obviously superior social standing. Setsu steps forward, calling her rude and demanding an introduction, proving he's still the boss of this snowy household. The woman scoffs, amused that her nephew hasn't heard of her yet, which is a major red flag for everyone. She insults Manelli as a worthless girl, causing the pink-haired toddler to wonder if she should just start throwing hands. Setsu's eyes flash with protective fury as he demands an immediate apology, refusing to let anyone disrespect his favorite person. The woman sighs dramatically, asking if this is how he treats his new guardian. Well, that's one way to ruin a funeral. A text box reveals that Lady Camilla is the bitter older sister of Setsu's biological mother, Laurelina. Family reunions suck. A flashback shows Laurelina, a prestigious youngest daughter who clearly wasn't prepared for the harsh, monster-filled life in the north. Laurelina's past self enjoyed a life of luxury before her marriage to the Duke turned into a total bolt from the blue. In her letters, Laurelina described the castle as a demon den filled with hissing snakes, sounding very much like a horror protagonist. Camilla holds the letter with a sinister look, realizing this piece of paper is her golden ticket to controlling the estate. The narrative confirms that Camilla was never there to help. She only existed to make Setsu's childhood a miserable grind. Camilla formally introduces herself as Aunt Camilla Winter, announcing her plan to manage the internal affairs and the children until further notice. A wicked, sharp smirk crosses her face, confirming she is 100% the villain that the narrative warned us about earlier. Camilla immediately shifts into evil stepmom mode, deciding her first order of business is to discipline the insolent staff members. Minelli stares blankly, realizing that between the dead parents and the wicked aunt, her comfy castle life is officially over. A sharp clap, sounding as Camilla demands the butler throw Minelli out of the castle immediately. Talk about an eviction notice. She scolds the butler for his tone, acting as if she already owns the place despite the Duke's body still being cold. Minelli glares at the wicked woman, noting that she's already acting like the Grand Duchess of Alcaman without any legal authority. Camilla shrieks in outrage, unable to handle a toddler making eye contact with her. Someone needs a very long nap. A quick tuck sounding as a hand intercepts Camilla's slap, saving Minelli from a very undeserved high-velocity palm to the face. The butler holds her wrist firmly, reminding her that the servants are watching, and she should probably chill out. Camilla snaps her hand back, looking absolutely disgusted that a mere servant dared to touch her while she was being evil. Minelli watches with a deadpan expression, thinking that Camilla is speedrunning the process of making every single person hate her. The aunt double downs on her hatred, claiming she doesn't care if the girl freezes to death because of past family drama. Minelli clenches her fists, vowing that no matter how many evil aunts arrive, she's staying by Setsu's side forever. The butler checks on her with a kind smile, and Minelli puts on her best "I'm fine" face to keep the peace. Determination looks good on pink hair as Minelli decides to endure the current chaos for the plot. Her smile is a weapon used to distract the wicked aunt and keep the heat off poor Setsu. A shaky sounding as Minelli realizes her plan for a peaceful life has hit a major wall. The sight of the boarded-up room is a grim reminder that this castle just got a lot less cozy. Sitting in the hallway, she finds a silver lining. At least she has 30 days before being homeless. Sir Cowles proves he's a true gentleman by offering the pink-haired toddler a literal escape route from misery. Apparently, the Cowles household is a boy-only zone, and they desperately need some pink-haired energy to balance things. Minelli plays the martyr, refusing the offer to protect her would-be rescuers from Lady Camilla's inevitable petty wrath. Sir Cowles respects the toddler's grit while she swears to survive this mess on her own 2 feet. Lady Camilla looms over a studious Setsu, turning his library time into a miserable, high-stakes corporate internship from hell. A rapid munch sounding as the narrative highlights the desperate, hungry sounds of someone eating in the dark. Huddled in a corner, Minelli treats a loaf of bread like it's the last meal she'll ever see. Uncle Loki risks the aunt screaming to smuggle bread to the girl she calls a little rat. So sweet. The room brightens instantly as Setsu makes his grand entrance, looking tired but still every bit the protagonist. Minelli tackles her young master with a hug, because nothing cures a bad day like some platonic toddler snuggling. A soft whew sounding as they lean together, finding a tiny island of peace in a very stormy castle. Setsu immediately notices her weight loss, proving he's the most observant 8-year-old in the entire Northern Kingdom. She puts on a brave face, hiding her hunger because she refuses to add to Setsu's growing mountain of stress. Against a background of teddy bears, Setsu admits his worry, making Minelli's internal fangirl scream at maximum volume. Her heart explodes with sparkles as she realizes her favorite brooding protagonist has leveled up in the maturity department. Minelli calls him out on his promise of honesty, and Setsu doubles down on his loyalty like a true knight. A fierce grr sounding as Minelli fumes over the ant's audacity to criticize Setsu's perfectly fine etiquette skills. Setsu takes a seat on the floor, exhausted by the upcoming ceremony and his aunt's relentless, nagging perfectionism. Minelli offers a heartfelt apology, but Setsu is too busy being a stoic hero to accept any blame. Guilt washes over her as she wonders if her script meddling turned Setsu's life into this exhausting, joyless grind. She fights back tears, knowing that her crying would only break Setsu's already fragile, overworked heart even more. With a gaze of pure steel, Setsu orders her to stay in Alkaman regardless of how cruel the ant gets. Cupid's arrow strikes again as Minelli realizes her young master is officially her favorite person in this entire world. A firm bam sounding as she pounds her chest, vowing to be his ride-or-die partner until the very end. The duo walks side by side, a tiny but mighty united front against the forces of wicked ant tyranny. Anxiety spikes as the succession ceremony looms, threatening to change their lives and the castle's hierarchy forever. Minelli gazes at Setsu, seeing the future ruler hiding beneath the tired eyes of a worked little boy. Beneath a snowy sky, the narrative takes a somber turn as Minelli whispers her final goodbye to her mother. Standing before the coffin in the snow, the pink-haired orphan feels the full, heavy weight of her new reality. The pink-haired toddler stands alone in the vast, echoing cathedral, dwarfed by the grand architecture of Alkaman's solemn house of worship. Minelli approaches the dark wooden coffin, her small frame a sharp contrast to the cold, heavy atmosphere of the funeral hall. Surrounded by pure white lilies, Laurelina rests with a serene expression, finally finding the peace that the harsh northern life denied her. Gazing down at her mother, Minelli wonders if the woman was truly satisfied to pass away while being held by the one she loved. A moment of quiet reflection follows as the narrative suggests that perhaps, in the end, Laurelina's heart was full despite the tragedy. Standing by the casket, Minelli realizes that Setsu's original path was a mirror of her own, a life defined by loss and lingering unhappiness. Determination sparks in her purple eyes as she vows to break the cycle of misery, refusing to let Setsu's future remain a tragic script. With a final promise whispered over the flowers, the toddler commits herself to protecting the young master from a lifetime of longing. The funeral proceeds with grim efficiency as the envoy of the crown prepares to formally recognize Setsu's succession before the grieving household. A steady hand pins a ceremonial medal to Setsu's chest, officially marking the transition of power to the youngest Grand Duke in history. Minelli watches from the sidelines with a proud, teary-eyed smile, looking every bit like a doting mother watching her kid graduate kindergarten. Setsu stands tall in his royal regalia, looking remarkably dignified for a child who probably still needs help reaching the top shelf. Minelli gushes to Uncle Loki about how photogenic Setsu is, basically admitting she'd be a total paparazzi aunt if cameras actually existed here. She closes her eyes with a satisfied sigh, reaffirming that her young master is special and deserves nothing but the absolute best. A bright, bubbly expression crosses her face as she celebrates Setsu's glow-up, proving that her fangirl heart is still beating strong. Hearts and sparkles fly as Minelli beams with pride, while Uncle Loki looks on, clearly concerned by her sudden burst of toddler energy. The camera pans over the rows of solemn guests, highlighting the heavy weight of tradition pressing down on the young heir's shoulders. The peace is shattered as Lady Camilla shrieks in outrage, calling Minelli an insolent brat for having the audacity to exist nearby. Pointing a gloved finger, Camilla demands to know how a lowly girl dares to occupy a seat of honor during such a prestigious event. Minelli stares blankly, realizing that the wicked aunt doesn't even need a valid reason to be a top-tier hater. It's just her hobby. Uncle Loki steps in with a protective glare, reminding the noblewoman that Minelli also lost her entire world and deserves some basic human decency. Loki's firm hand on her shoulder gives Minelli a warm, fuzzy feeling, making her realize that not everyone in this castle is a villain. She smiles softly to herself, thinking that maybe her efforts to be useful weren't in vain if the old man is willing to defend her. Camilla scoffs in disbelief, convinced that the castle is suddenly overrun by arrogant fools who don't respect her self-proclaimed authority. The aunt's face twists with elitist rage as she questions how a lowly commoner could possibly understand the concept of freedom or rights. The assembled vassals and the royal envoy watch the drama unfold, their faceless silhouettes adding to the stifling pressure of the public confrontation. Fed up with the bullying, Minelli marches forward with a determined stride, ready to drop some corporate-level truth bombs on her wicked relative. Clambering onto a bench to gain some literal high ground, the toddler points a finger and declares Camilla officially unfit for management. The tiny pink-haired revolutionary stands her ground against the towering aunt, stunning the entire hall with her fearless, high-stakes public call-out. With fire in her eyes and a scowl on her face, Minelli warns that her anger is just the opening act for the reckoning. Thought bubbles reveal the harsh reality. Camilla is a toxic influence who would only lead the young Grand Duke into a spiral of misery. Minelli lists the aunt's specific abuses, from starvation to nailing doors shut, while Camilla's hand twitches with the urge to silence the rat. A sharp cuck sounding as Camilla's palm connects with Minelli's face, proving that the villainess has officially lost her grip on sanity and decorum. Dark energy swirls around the aunt as she claims the house only prospers because of her, demanding gratitude instead of insolence from the staff. Shrouded in shadow, Minelli listens to the woman's delusional lecture about the difficulty of running a noble household, clearly unimpressed by the excuses. The narrative confirms that despite her big talk, Camilla was actually a disaster at internal affairs, likely couldn't even balance a checkbook. By the time Setsu actually took over, the estate was buried under a mountain of debt, proving Camilla was better at spending than managing. In the original timeline, the villainess didn't even face consequences. She just grabbed the cash and ghosted the family like a true corporate criminal. A fiery aura erupts around Minelli as she fumes over the aunt's blatant lies, her accountant's soul screaming at the sheer financial audacity. Accountant mode activated. Minelli recalls her past life's degree, catching Lady Camilla red-handed in a scheme of financial fraud. The toddler snaps, declaring she could manage the estate better than the silver-haired villainess, even with her tiny hands. Lady Camilla shrieks in fury, raising her gloved hand to deliver a slap that would definitely ruin the funeral vibes. Setsu arrives in full regalia, his voice cutting through the tension to firmly back up Minelli's bold claims. The boy officially claims his title, reminding the room that he is the Grand Duke and Minelli is his priority. Camilla's jaw hits the floor as she realizes her nephew just promoted her to the status of an outsider. Minelli stares in awe, realizing the little boy she sheltered has finally stepped into his role as a leader. The narrative reveals that Setsu wasn't just reading books, he was biding his time to seize absolute power. Camilla storms out in a huff, convinced the children will come crawling back the moment they see a spreadsheet. Silence falls over the grand hall as the era of the wicked ant comes to a very satisfying, sudden end. The adrenaline fades, leaving Minelli a shaky mess on the floor as she processes her first corporate-style showdown. A concerned voice asks if she's okay, bringing the pink-haired accountant back to the reality of her toddler body. A bubbly hee-hee sounding as she admits her legs gave out after that world-class display of pure, unadulterated sass. Minelli voices the practical concern. Who's going to handle the palace's internal affairs now that the villain has gone? Setsu looks at her with a knowing glint in his eye, clearly having already picked out his new manager. He points the finger at Minelli, officially draft-picking his toddler best friend to run the entire dukedom. Good luck, girl. Surrounded by blooming roses, Minelli looks on with wide, curious eyes, seemingly contemplating her unexpected new role as the duchy's tiny accountant. In a sudden shift to the present, a slightly older Minelli looks worried, wondering if leaving the duchy's survival to her 8-year-old self is wise. Standing in the empty cathedral, she reflects on her master's in accounting, which is great, but she's still technically a child in this world. A pair of hands clasped together, one belonging to the future ruler and one to his tiny manager, signaling a bond that transcends mere service. Setsu asks if she'll stay by his side even if the duchy falls, proving that he values her company way more than his actual inheritance. The young master flashes a rare, genuine smile, telling her that as long as they're together, failing at the whole ruling thing is totally fine. The pink-haired toddler blushes furiously, her heart full as she realizes that seeing her favorite character smile is enough. Tiny Setsu laughs while holding hands with Minelli, finding his little accountant in training absolutely hilarious and delightful. Older Minelli watches her younger self and Setsu, jokingly calling him a fool for not taking her seriously. Surrounded by flowers, the grand castle of the north stands resolute amidst the snow, a silent witness to the changing tides. Lady Camilla stares in horror at a formal compensation claim, her silver hair practically frizzing from the sheer audacity. The villainess shrieks at the darkness, outraged that her 7-year-old niece would dare file a legal audit against her. Minelli stands her ground, calling out the wicked ant for trying to embezzle lunch money from a mere child. With fire in her eyes, the pink-haired toddler delivers a verbal smackdown, telling her relative to feel some shame. Camilla's dramatic rant continues as she yells at a baffled guard, essentially narrating her own loss of dignity. The narrative shifts as teen Minelli recalls her past life credentials, a cold city woman with a master's in accounting. A maid asks the pink-haired prodigy where she learned such advanced skills, truly baffled by the toddler's genius. Minelli laughs off the question, knowing the adults are completely floored by her sudden display of corporate competence. Tiny hands, big ledgers. The pink-haired toddler takes her seat at the massive desk, surrounded by a curious staff. Concentration is key as the pint-sized manager reviews documents, her large blue eyes scanning for every missing cent. The castle staff quickly learns to stop asking questions as the toddler's efficiency becomes the stuff of legend. Clasping her quill, Minelli is just relieved the adults are too intimidated by her aura to pry into her secrets. Cheerfully pumping her fist, Minelli vows to raise Setsu into the most valiant black-haired Grand Duke the North has seen. Time passes as the pink-haired girl sits in a lavish room, reflecting on the luxury she's finally attained. She realizes her body feels light and energetic, finally free from the soul-crushing drowsiness of her previous overworked life. Reborn and refreshed, the older pink-haired girl celebrates the perks of a young body and a fresh start. Standing tall in her pajamas, she fires herself up for another day of dukedom management and master doting. Admiring her gorgeous quarters, she marvels at how far she's come from being a shivering orphan in the snow. A flashback reveals a exhausted toddler Minelli passed out on her desk, proving that being a manager is tough work. Even in her dreams, the tiny workaholic is reviewing internal affairs, murmuring about having just 3 ledgers left. The narrative explains that taking over her late mother's grand room was the only logical step for the new manager. Now a young lady, Minelli blushes with joy, revealing she actually won this fancy room in a high-stakes bet. Striding through the stone halls in her stylish boots, the pink-haired girl looks ready to tackle any financial crisis. The maids greet her with bright smiles, officially addressing their favorite pink-haired strategist as the counselor. Her staff notes her high spirits, their hands clasped in admiration as they bask in her upbeat energy. With a confident grin, Minelli confirms she's in a great mood, ready to dominate the daily schedule. The pink-haired girl smiles warmly, her mind already racing with plans for the duchy's future success. A vision of the beautiful, blonde Canaria appears, setting the stage for the original story's romantic heroine to arrive. Setsu and Canaria share a faded look, the narrative confirming their love-at-first-sight encounter at a grand royal ball. Fangirl mode engaged. Minelli gushes over the upcoming romance, her heart racing at the thought of a happy ending. Clasping her face, she declares that the original plot must succeed, leaving the maids utterly bewildered by her intensity. One of the maids blushes while talking to her, showing how much the staff has grown to adore their counselor. Setsu stands tall in his regalia, his coming-of-age ceremony described as a modest affair devoid of traditional pomp. Minelli admires her master's growth, praising the classic dark-haired duke aesthetic he's finally perfected. A tender moment of reflection follows as she considers how the dukedom's efforts are all directed toward her master. The maids giggle, wondering if a new Grand Duchess will finally be welcomed to the castle's empty throne. Shocked Chibi Minelli panics internally, wondering how on earth the maid knows about the secret plot details. Laughing with her staff, the pink-haired girl keeps the atmosphere light while hiding her deep knowledge of the script. She wonders if the maids are just excited to hand over the stressful internal affairs to a new bride. Reflecting on her value, Minelli smiles, knowing that her accounting skills are her ultimate weapon in this world. Sudden job-hunting anxiety hits the counselor as she sighs over her future credentials once her master marries. The maids aggressively insist they'll follow her anywhere, moving the counselor to a confused but heartfelt thank you. A confused "ah" escapes her as Minelli finds herself being stared down by a group of overly enthusiastic castle maids. The maids cheer for their idol counselor, basically forming a pink-haired fan club and putting way too much pressure on her tiny toddler shoulders. Striding down the hall, Minelli grumbles about how she's handling company money, not personal wealth, proving her professional ethics are still top-notch. She stops in her tracks as a sudden realization hits her, her wide eyes reflecting a moment of clarity in the middle of the chaos. A fragmented vision of a handsome man in black flickers by, a stylish reminder that this story still has plenty of secrets and pretty boys waiting. A handsome, black-haired Setsu calls out to Minelli, radiating lead male energy against a floral backdrop. The pink-haired girl stares ahead with determination, her transition into a beautiful, capable young woman now complete. Blushing and starry-eyed, Minelli gushes to an adult Setsu, her fangirl heart still beating for her favorite master. Narrations confirm that thanks to Minelli's expert care, Setsu has grown from a sickly child into a muscular masterpiece. A close-up of adult Setsu shows his striking blue eyes and peak male lead energy, looking absolutely ready for romance. Pink-haired Minelli clutches her face in despair, realizing that her favorite character is now dangerously attractive to her heart. Standing in the castle, Minelli scolds the Duke for his blindingly bright smile, while Setsu admits he can't help himself. Surrounded by hearts, the counselor worries that her maternal affection is being replaced by something much more complicated and fatal. Minelli flashes a serene smile, enjoying the peaceful fruits of her labor after 20 years of intense duchy management work. Leaning in close, Setsu demands she stop with the formal titles and simply call him by his name, Setsu. Flustered, the pink-haired counselor refuses, claiming there is absolutely no way she can be that casual with her employer. She argues that as a mere commoner, calling the Grand Duke by his name would be a massive breach of protocol. Squinting with suspicion, Minelli worries that being too intimate now will lead to messy misunderstandings with the heroine, Canaria. Hearts erupt as the counselor celebrates nearing the official start of the novel's plot, 20 years after her reincarnation. Setsu interrupts her fangirl moment, smiling warmly as he invites her to join him for a private breakfast together. Pink-haired Minelli hesitates, complaining that the Duke always uses mealtime as an excuse to overfeed her tiny management soul. Setsu teases her about being too thin and small, while Minelli insists it's just that he's an oversized genetic anomaly. Pouting, she explains that height is 80% genetics, so his plan to feed her into growth is scientifically flawed. Setsu looks devastated, asking if she was destined to be tiny from birth, while the counselor fumes in the corner. Crossing her arms, the pink-haired girl delivers a firm refusal, telling His Grace to enjoy his breakfast in solitary confinement. Setsu activates his ultimate weapon, claiming he'll skip breakfast and starve because eating alone is just too lonely and difficult. Internal thoughts reveal Minelli sees through the sneaky trick, vowing to resist the emotional manipulation of her master's appetite. Standing her ground with a determined huff, she repeats her refusal to be guilt-tripped into a second breakfast session. Setsu plays the puppy card, literally growing dog ears as he looks at her with the most heartbreakingly sad eyes imaginable. A puck sounding as a punch to the heart lands. Minelli's logical defenses crumble instantly against the Duke's weaponized cuteness. The scene shifts to the snowy towers of the castle, marking the end of the morning's breakfast negotiation battle. Adjusting her glasses, the red-haired assistant asks what on earth happened to the counselor during the morning hours. Slumped on a couch and looking ready to pop, Minelli begs her assistant to stop talking before she explodes. The assistant sighs over the counselor's inability to say no to the Duke, while Minelli sweats from the overeating. Mentally, the counselor challenges anyone to face that dazzling, weaponized Duke smile and try to say no with a straight face. The mood turns serious as the assistant reports a suspicious woman caught at the castle gate. It's finally Canaria's arrival. A flashback shows a carriage in the snow as the red-haired assistant brings up a specific, embarrassing memory for the counselor. Back in the present carriage, pink-haired Minelli screams for her assistant to shut up while hiding her face in shame. A thought bubble reveals a crying toddler Minelli, haunted by the memory of sobbing when Setsu once caught the flu. The narrative shows adult Setsu as the fearsome northern monster, a scary reputation Minelli intentionally manufactured to protect him. Blushing, the counselor recalls how her teenage delusions led her to create such terrifying nicknames for her beloved master. Pink-haired Minelli gushes over her perfectly crafted plan, while her assistant watches with a look of pure, unadulterated judgment. The counselor looks confused as her assistant questions the logic of her behavior, or perhaps her sudden mood swing. Realization strikes like a lightning bolt as the counselor processes the description. The suspicious woman is definitely the heroine, Canaria. Facing a crisis, Manelli decides it's time to deploy her most dangerous secret weapon, the power of pathological lying. Her special skill is just making stuff up, leaving her red-haired assistant, Shauna, looking utterly exhausted with her life. Shanna adjusts her glasses, expertly diagnosing Manelli's logic as purely inductive nonsense rather than actual deductive reasoning. When Shauna brings up the sword-talking incident, Manelli screeches in embarrassment, begging her to bury that memory forever. A traumatic flashback reveals the exact moment toddler Manelli burst into a room to have a heart-to-heart with a sword. Pink-haired Manelli giggles while clutching a sword, clearly proud of the Ozblade name she's bestowed upon it. Surrounded by staff, the counselor gleefully shows off the blade while her subordinates watch their tiny manager with concern. Sweating under the pressure of several judging stares, Manelli tries to maintain her cool while the staff whispers nearby. Inside the carriage, the red-haired assistant mentions the embarrassing Ozblade name, causing Manelli to cringe in pure agony. Pink-haired Manelli fumes, wishing she'd stuck with the edgy original novel name, Chaos of Slumber, instead of her rebrand. Adjusting her glasses, the red-haired assistant sternly warns the counselor to stay away from the gates for her safety. The assistant insists that handling suspicious intruders is a job for the Grand Duke or the captain of the guards. Manelli stares blankly into space with a silent, clearly ignoring the sensible advice of her very stressed-out legal counsel. Smiling brightly, the pink-haired counselor argues that Lynn is too weak against women to handle the gate duty effectively. A flashback reveals that Lynn has evolved from an innocent country boy into a full-blown womanizer, much to Manelli's amusement. A loud poo-ha-ha escapes the red-haired assistant as she loses her professional composure and laughs at the counselor's bluntness. Pink-haired Manelli looks genuinely startled, asking why her assistant is laughing so hard at a perfectly serious observation. Surrounded by question marks, the girl wonders what part of her management report was accidentally a stand-up comedy routine. The scene shifts to a carriage arriving at the snowy gates of Alcaman while the internal bickering continues inside. Narrations explain that the territory's massive ice walls serve as an impenetrable fortress against monsters and uninvited guests. Despite the wall's legendary reputation for keeping people out, the carriage approaches the gate for a fateful meeting. Princess Canaria is the only one who can bypass the ice, as Manelli and Shauna finally arrive to investigate. The pink-haired counselor and her assistant trudge through the snow, flanked by guards as they head toward the gate. One guard asks what brings her there, and Manelli explains she's investigating a report about a suspicious intruder. She expresses concern about the intruder being a young woman, and the old guard nods, totally understanding her worries. As they enter the castle, Manelli checks if the guard has been mistreated, but he assures her he's fine. Butterflies turn into buzzsaws in her stomach as Manelli realizes the novel's actual protagonist is right behind the door. Inside a cell, a hooded blonde woman waits, while Manelli hopes this meeting secures Setsu's ultimate happy ending. Channeling her best professional energy, the pink-haired counselor offers a bright hello to the mysterious, captive protagonist. Hearts float everywhere as Canaria looks visibly shaken by Manelli's radiant, high-energy entrance into her gloomy prison cell. The blonde intruder asks if she'd even be believed, clearly skeptical of the pink-haired girl's overly friendly vibes. Manelli notes that Canaria is being defensive, which is fair since she was, thrown in a dungeon. Acting as the ultimate wingwoman, Manelli tells the distinguished guest she must leave immediately to avoid causing trouble. Canaria is absolutely flabbergasted, wondering what kind of reverse psychology jailbreak this pink-haired girl is trying to pull. Spotting the red opal phoenix jewelry, Manelli confirms this is definitely Canaria, the fire spirit sealing treasure-wearing protagonist. The pink-haired counselor maintains a serene smile, while the blonde princess continues to look like her brain just rebooted. Shanna demands to know what kind of game Manelli is playing, but the counselor just keeps her poker face. Standing before the bars, Manelli officially welcomes the prisoner to Alcamán with the hospitality of a five-star hotel. The scene moves to a carriage where the three women sit in what must be the world's most awkward carpool. A halo of light surrounds Canaria, confirming her status as the breathtakingly beautiful and fated heroine of the story. Manelli descends into full fangirl mode, clutching her face while mentally screaming about how stunning the protagonist actually is. Canaria leans in with curiosity, asking if her name is actually Manelli Bava, finally showing some interest in her rescuer. Smiling warmly, the counselor tells her to use whatever name feels comfy. It's all about those cozy, friendly vibes now. When Canaria asks if the Grand Duke knows she's here, Manelli confirms he wanted her checked out in advance. Canaria clarifies she isn't actually engaged, pointing out she's younger than the Crown Prince in a very defensive tone. A flashback depicts a royal gala where a queenly figure worries about a tyrant's threat to burn her country. The narrative introduces a domineering emperor who thinks he owns every woman, while a chibi witch looks on sadly. Narrations describe the emperor's extreme entitlement, set against a background of ominous, blood-red lilies and dark shadows. The Crown Prince is revealed as a carbon copy of his father's jerkiness, apparently coming to Alcamán to throw tantrums. Fury ignites in Manelli's eyes as she vows that this time the entitled prince won't even set foot inside. While Canaria remains calm and elegant, Manelli literally radiates a murderous, flaming aura of protective manager rage. The blonde princess eventually drifts off to sleep, looking peaceful despite the chaotic politics currently swirling around her. Peeking over, Manelli can't help but admire how the girl manages to stay beautiful even while napping. True protagonist energy. Shayna leans in, sweating under the pressure as she asks Manelli what the master plan is for this houseguest. The assistant warns that Canaria is basically a walking war trophy who is guaranteed to bring a mountain of trouble. Shanna worries the prince won't just stand by, but Manelli dismisses her concerns with a confident, cheeky wave. The pink-haired girl looks delighted, noting that Canaria was exhausted when she crossed the massive ice wall alone. As night falls over the snowy castle, the narrative notes Alcamán's status as a quiet, autonomous region under the Duke. Shayna questions her friend's sanity, but Manelli insists that every bit of this madness is strictly for Setsu's benefit. Stepping out of the carriage at night, the counselor looks ready to finish her long day of protagonist management. Manelli's heart skips a beat as she spots Setsu, her surprise written all over her face in the moonlight. Adult Setsu looks dashing in his fur-lined cape, causing Manelli to wonder where on earth he's heading so late. Seeing his traveling boots and heavy cape, she realizes he's prepared for an outing that definitely wasn't on her schedule. Setsu surprises her by closing the distance and calling her name, his sudden proximity making the counselor's fangirl heart race. Massaging his temples, Setsu looks completely frazzled as he searches for his disappearing counselor in the moonlight. The northern monster freezes as Princess Canaria emerges from the carriage, looking every bit the fated, radiant heroine. Manelli introduces her prize catch, explaining that this intruder is actually the woman destined to steal the Duke's heart. Clad in a gown of roses and light, Canaria offers a formal bow to the stunned Grand Duke Alcamán. Looking like a proud matchmaker who just won the lottery, Manelli watches as her master stares at the princess. Flashing a dazzling "trust me" smile, the counselor suggests the exhausted princess needs a nap instead of an interrogation. Setsu remains uncharacteristically silent, his intense gaze fixed on the unexpected guest who just bypassed his legendary ice wall. Shrugging off his confusion, the Duke retreats while giving Manelli full creative control over the territory's newest houseguest. Manelli watches Setsu's retreating back, feeling like a genius puppet master whose ultimate shipping plan is finally coming together. The scene shifts across the continent to a sprawling, sun-drenched southern palace that looks much less frozen than Alcman. A flamboyant, pink-haired man in a white uniform strolls through the halls while ladies whisper about his sudden appearance. The local gossip mill goes into overdrive, wondering why Admiral Pasa has finally bothered to visit the capital. Giving the fans what they want, the Admiral delivers a weaponized wink that could probably sink an entire fleet. Hearts literally fly out of the noblewomen's chests as they convince themselves the Admiral's flirtatious wink was a personal message. Sauntering past his swooning fan club, the Admiral maintains his cool guy facade while the ladies continue to lose it. Narrations introduce him as the naval commander of Pasa, a man who usually stays far away from the snowy north. Despite being a high-ranking Marquess, he's a sailor at heart who prefers his salty nickname over his formal title. A loud squeak sounds as the Admiral pushes open the heavy doors, ready to face whatever boring royal summons awaits. A calm voice greets the newcomer, welcoming a man named Josh back to the center of political boredom. Sitting behind a mountain of paperwork, a silver-haired man with red eyes watches the pink-haired sailor's dramatic entrance. Admiral Pasa immediately complains about the travel distance, demanding to know why he was dragged away from his ocean. The silver-haired man doesn't look sympathetic, holding up a dossier while reminding the Admiral that duty isn't a suggestion. With a smirk, the silver-haired royal explains he called the Admiral in to cool down after his recent maritime rampage. Relaxing on a couch, the Admiral mocks the idea of being a madman for just doing his naval job. The silver-haired man questions if wiping out pirates is the Admiral's only excuse for his recent excessive behavior. Looking like a bored teenager, the Admiral argues that a cleaner, pirate-free sea is objectively a win for everyone. The silver-haired man sighs, turning his attention back to the documents while preparing to drop a much bigger problem. Kicking his feet up, the pink-haired Admiral asks for his new mission, clearly hoping for something more exciting than paperwork. The prompt reveals the scandal. The Emperor's intended 12th concubine has pulled a disappearing act and vanished into thin air. The Admiral jokes about burning down towns or setting sail, showing his usual extreme approach to minor inconveniences. Tossing Manelli's profile onto the table, the silver-haired man orders the Admiral to retrieve the fugitive from Alcman. Admiral Pasa delivers a firm no thanks, clearly not interested in a road trip to the frozen northern wasteland. Leaning forward with a predatory glint in his red eyes, the royal promises he has a very enticing bribe. The Admiral's playful attitude vanishes, replaced by a sharp, focused look as he senses the interest in the air. A detailed profile of Manelli Bava appears, revealing that the counselor's secret identity might not be so secret anymore. Back in the present, Manelli stands in her finest purple dress, looking completely unaware that she's a wanted woman. Bubbling with excitement, the counselor skips through during the hall, convinced that her happy ending plan is going perfectly. Watching Canaria and Setsu from the shadows, Manelli celebrates the first step of her romantic master plan with a huff. Plotting her next move, she anticipates the upcoming ball, already imagining the princess in a dress that will break the Duke's heart. Manelli heads off to alter a gown, leaving a trail of sparkles and confused maids in her wake. Pumping her fist, the pink-haired girl gushes about how stunning the distinguished guest actually is in person. The castle staff is already buzzing, admitting they've never seen a beauty quite like the mysterious blonde newcomer. Minelli rallies the maids, asking if they agree that the princess is the most beautiful creature to ever exist. The maids swoon over Canaria's jewel-like eyes and impossible waistline, proving the heroine aura works on everyone. Smiling through the stress, Minelli instructs the staff to treat their guest like royalty, impressed by their professional speed. The maids are horrified when Minelli announces she's giving Canaria the most prestigious room in the entire castle. Minelli defends her choice, mentally noting that in the original story, this room is the key to the romance. A romantic vision shows Canaria singing on the terrace, a scene destined to completely open Setsu's cold, monstrous heart.
Strikes a dramatic pose. The counselor fangirls over the excellent singing voice that is about to save the territory.
The mood shatters as Shayna points out that Minelli has been secretly packing her bags for a quick escape. Minelli's attempt at a stealth packing session is a total fail. The staff already knows she's prepping for the upcoming royal birthday. The maids are low-key horrified that Minelli is assigning that room to a guest. Palace floor plans are apparently serious business. Her gossip session is interrupted by the gray-haired butler, looking like he's about to deliver some very official, non-negotiable news. The butler delivers the urgent summons. His Grace wants a chat. Minelli better hope she didn't lose his favorite book.
Standing before the Duke's bedroom doors, Minelli wonders why this meeting isn't happening in his much less suggestive professional office.
She hesitates at the door, realizing that childhood playmates visiting each other's bedrooms feels very different after a royal glow-up. "Your Grace?" she asks, entering with a smile that's trying very hard to hide her internal, "please don't be weird" mantra. Setsu is lounging with a book, looking every bit the brooding, handsome protagonist who definitely knows how to work a room. He acknowledges her with a gaze so soft it could probably melt the entire frozen north in a single silent second. Minelli's internal fangirl is screaming. The Duke's beauty is a direct, targeted attack on her cardiovascular health and logic. Before she can even breathe, he's ushering her to sit, acting like an overprotective boyfriend instead of a tactical strategist. Suddenly, she's being tucked into his personal sofa. A quick sniff confirms the blanket smells like him. Help, she's ascending. Satsu sits beside her, noting her fatigue while Minelli hides under the covers like a very flustered, pink-haired burrito. She admits that the grueling ball preparations are finally winning the war against her stamina and her common sense. Staring at the ceiling, she anticipates the coming party, her heart racing faster than a runaway horse on a frozen lake. A tender hand reaches out to touch her hair, sending Minelli's brain into a complete, sparkling, and very expensive system failure. Setsu's gaze turns nostalgic as he reflects on their childhood, proving that even cold dukes have a soft spot for memories. Wrapped in his blanket, Minelli stares back, her heart doing backflips as she absorbs the intense gravity of his attention. A memory surfaces of a teary-eyed young Setsu, looking like the world's saddest, most adorable little future archduke in history. Back in reality, they laugh about how he caught her cold as kids, causing a massive, dramatic, estate-wide panic. In the present, she insists they can't let the Duke fall ill, sounding like the most dedicated, overprotective aide in history. A cryptic note reveals that their childhood illness was actually a blessing that helped them avoid a deadly mountain avalanche. Setsu gently strokes her hair again, admitting that even if he could travel through time, his choices would remain identical. Surrounded by imaginary flower petals, he confesses he could never leave her side when she's vulnerable. Cue the romantic palace choir. Minelli mentions the maids were cleaning his room, her expression turning into a masterpiece of subtle, very suspicious curiosity. The Duke looks genuinely bewildered, his hand frozen at his chin as he tries to process her sudden room service update. She explains that the guest got the second best room because she's a princess, logic which clearly isn't sitting well. Setsu stares in deadpan silence, likely wondering if Manelli is actually the world's most oblivious, self-sabotaging, pink-haired wingwoman. He bluntly shuts down her reasoning. Apparently, that specific room assignment is a logistical and emotional impossibility in his book. Manelli argues back about fire spirits, proving that she's ready to fight for her guests' comfort, much to Setsu's visible frustration. Narrative text introduces the pink-haired Princess Canaria, destined to be the Emperor's 12th consort, truly a romantic logistics nightmare. While the stoic Setsu looms in the foreground, the pink-haired Manelli fangirls behind him, living her best life. Startled eyes widen as Princess Canaria sits before a clenched, gloved fist. Definitely not the greeting she was expecting. As Setsu suggests informing the capital, a younger, frantic Manelli shouts a desperate "no" and lunges at him. Clinging to his arm with teary eyes, the pink-haired girl begs him to reconsider, questioning the Duke's legendary memory. Pages flutter wildly in a floating book, marking a pivotal transition in the story's ever-twisting and dramatic timeline. Looking stressed and wide-eyed, Manelli argues that the princess remains necessary for their grand and complicated plan. Striking a triumphant pose, the pink-haired girl boasts about fire spirits while Setsu watches her like she's a malfunctioning appliance. A rare, devastatingly handsome smile touches Setsu's lips as he admits his counselor actually has a very valid point. A smooth, gloved hand reaches for Manelli's waist, brushing against the cherry-patterned fabric of. Amidst a burst of romantic flowers, Setsu gently takes Manelli's hand, finally giving the fans the close-up they deserve. Bowing deeply, the Duke offers a charming remark that leaves Manelli blushing and claiming she's just being flattered. Waving a cheerful goodbye, the pink-haired girl returns to her duties, glowing with the satisfaction of a job well begun. Manelli beams with pure joy, surrounded by floral sparkles. It seems her master plan for matchmaking is working out perfectly. An intense close-up of Setsu's gray eyes reveals a man deeply lost in thought, probably calculating his next move. The Grand Duke takes a seat with a dramatic swish of his black cape, dominating the opulent, dimly lit room. With a suspicious glint in his eyes, Setsu admits he suspected as much. Nothing escapes the sharp mind of Alcman. An elderly butler with a monocle enters the room, asking if his master called for his professional assistance. Turning his back to the butler, Setsu stands in the shadows, looking like the ultimate broody protagonist of a tragedy. Setsu demands to know why Manelli's departure wasn't reported, his profile sharp against the dark and moody background. Later, Manelli practically sparkles into the office, leaving her red-haired aide wondering if someone spiked the morning tea with joy. The glasses-wearing aide is deeply suspicious. She was expecting a scolding, not a girl radiating pure, unadulterated, pink-haired sunshine. Manelli gleefully confirms she wasn't scolded, looking like she just won the lottery and a lifetime supply of Duke-scented blankets. Adjusting her glasses, the aide remains skeptical, convinced that the Duke's legendary temper should have made an appearance by now. Manelli defends him with a gentle heart argument, which is a bold claim for a man who commands literal shadow snakes. She shuts down the gossip to focus on work, because, apparently, even romantic daydreams have to follow a strict palace schedule. A floral system window announces that the original novel's plot is finally kicking off. Hope everyone brought their plot armor and shields. The butler offers a groveling apology, reporting that a certain royal guest has made a suspiciously silent, totally unannounced departure. Shirok! Massive, pitch-black shadow serpents surge across the floor, proving that the Duke's mood just plummeted into final boss territory. The butler visibly recoils as the room's atmosphere turns icy, proving that nobody wants to be near a grumpy shadow summoner. Swipe! The dark energy retreats as the Duke's temper simmers, leaving the floor and the butler's dignity mostly intact for now. Standing in the gloom, Setsu radiates a terrifyingly cold aura that suggests someone is about to have a very bad week. He demands gratitude that Minelli is safe, his eyes turning into icy daggers that could pierce through several layers of armor. The Duke orders a full investigation into Princess Canaria, showing that his protective mode has been upgraded to full-blown surveillance. A close-up of his face reveals a man who is finished playing games and is ready to start some serious retaliation. When asked about the guest's lodging, he gives Minelli a blank check for authority, letting her manage the estate's chaos. He clenches his fist in frustration, hurt that Minelli is literally pushing him toward another woman like a misguided matchmaker. His gaze hardens with a silent vow. Whatever romantic games she thinks she's playing, he's not going to follow her script. Flashback, and her aide were busy barking orders at the staff, turning the courtyard into a whirlwind of productivity. She looks radiant among the roses, a vision of pink-haired competence that clearly did permanent damage to the Duke's poor heart. A flashback shows a young Setsu kneeling as a priest blesses him, praying for the prosperity of the frozen north. Back in the church pews, Minelli watches the adult Setsu, her expression a mix of pride and quiet, lingering affection. The pink-haired girl admits that this fully grown, powerful Setsu feels unfamiliar compared to the fragile boy she knew. Standing tall in his fur-lined commander's uniform, the Grand Duke looks every bit the hero of his own story. As the scene shifts to the capital, Minelli notes that the once fragile Setsu is now ready to face whatever comes. Setsu looms over kneeling men, cold as ice, while the text outlines his grand plans for Alkaman's future. Clenching his sword, the Duke's presence is suffocating as Minelli wonders if she'll be out of a job soon. Looking pensive, the pink-haired girl decides to kick the retirement can down the road and just enjoy the moment. A massive boom echoes through the night as brilliant gold fireworks paint the dark sky in a dazzling display. Crowds gather outside the castle, their eyes glued to the pyrotechnics that are far more exciting than any ball. A joyful wah erupts from the maids and children as the night sky continues to sparkle with festive magic. High on a balcony, Minelli gazes at her handiwork with stars in her eyes, shocked it actually worked so well. The counselor's wallet weeps as she remembers just how many gold coins she literally blew up into the atmosphere. "It's from a book, I swear," Minelli lies to the bespectacled red-haired woman, hiding her 21st century pyrotechnic secrets. Rubbing her temples, the pink-haired girl realizes her past life trivia is becoming increasingly difficult to explain to locals. A flashback shows a laughing blacksmith who thought Minelli's crazy gunpowder drawings were just peak artistic expression. Thank goodness. The two women watch the sky erupt again. One satisfied with the while the nobles are mesmerized by the lights, the narrative suggests the stage is finally set for a breakthrough. The legendary first scene is poised to begin, featuring Setsu and the beautiful blonde Canaria in a faded waltz. Wrapped in a golden dress, Canaria glows under the chandelier light, looking like every bit. Back in the hall, Minelli is a ball of excitement while peering over her glasses. The red-haired lady asks why Minelli is acting like the world's most intense, unpaid matchmaker. Minelli defends her choice with a sheepish grin, insisting that Canaria is the perfect VIP for their northern territory. Listing off Canaria's stats, Minelli argues that the blonde girl is the ultimate upgrade for the territory of Alkaman. Her smile falters as she considers the messy political fallout that happens when powerful giants decide to throw down. With a weary sigh, the red-haired woman drops a truth bomb. Has anyone actually asked the Duke's opinion?
A bead of sweat rolls down Manelli's face as the realization hits. She's been playing God without checking the manual.
Waving off the warning, the pink-haired girl chooses optimism, though her friend predicts a very painful reality check. What could possibly go wrong? Manelli asks the universe, which is a classic way to ensure everything goes wrong. Watching the night sky erupt in brilliant fireworks, Manelli stands in her teal and purple gown, looking completely mesmerized. A red-haired woman with glasses watches from the side, noticing as the pink-haired counselor heads away from the celebration. The bespectacled woman wonders why Manelli is skipping the ceremony, but the counselor is focused on her own mission. Manelli stands alone in a grand blue-lit hall, looking like a tiny sparkling dot in the vast castle architecture. Staring out the window at the deep blue night, the pink-haired girl can't help but think of Setsu's eyes. A memory of baby Setsu appears, looking impossibly beautiful and angelic. He was definitely the it boy, even in diapers. Clasped hands and a soft smile show Manelli's deep internal vow as she wanders through the silent blue-tinted corridors. A close-up of her stylish boots with blue bows highlights her commitment as she vows to make him happy. Manelli looks back with a radiant smile, her pink hair adorned with white flowers as she offers a formal greeting. Setsu sits regally with a fur-lined cape and a massive sword, looking every bit the legendary northern monster. The pink-haired girl looks up in awe, her heart likely skipping beats at the Duke's sudden and dashing appearance. As Setsu broods, the narrative wonders if the pink-haired girl would be calling him father in a different life. A detailed view of Manelli's teal jacket and purple gown shows off her high-quality, distinguished guest fashion choices. Standing before a large portrait of the Duke, Manelli promises to find him a heroine to prevent a tragic end. Surrounded by roses, the counselor smiles to herself, confident that the Duke will find his true happiness very soon. A voice calling her name from the shadows startles Manelli, breaking her quiet moment of introspection and shipping plans. Turning toward the mysterious voice, the pink-haired girl looks surprised, her hand raised in a gesture of mild confusion. Framed by a decorative border, the adult Setsu appears in his fur cape, looking far. The Grand Duke offers a rare, gentle smile that could probably start a small heatwave in the frozen north. Panic flickers in Manelli's eyes as she realizes Setsu should be dancing with Canaria, not wandering through the hallways. A romantic vision shows Setsu dancing with a pink-haired heroine. Wait, is the original story heroine also pink-haired? Manelli looks completely blindsided, her inner thoughts questioning why the Duke is here and not on the dance floor. A gloved hand firmly takes Manelli's, the sudden physical contact making the counselor's heart race like a runaway carriage. Looking absolutely shocked, the pink-haired girl can't process that the Duke is choosing to dance with her instead. Under a canopy of flowers, Setsu sweeps Manelli into a waltz, creating a moment that defies her own matchmaking plans. Sometime later, Manelli's matchmaker confidence has evaporated into thin air, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated dread. Huddled in a tavern, Manelli frantically explains to the brown-haired Lin that the script of her life is broken. Lin offers a calm, slightly amused look, clearly used to his friend's high-octane drama and various world-ending crises. A flowery memory of the dance shows Setsu looking way too romantic, proving he didn't follow the original plot. Burying her face in her hands, the counselor moans that everything is ruined. Her perfect. She questions why Setsu would ditch the blonde heroine just to hunt her. With a loud wah, Manelli slams her fists on the table, startling Lin and nearly upending their tavern dinner. Lin suggests that a good drink is the only cure for a matchmaking-induced. Leaning in with an intense gaze, Manelli asks Lin for his honest opinion, her pink hair catching the light. Blushing like a ripe tomato, Manelli stammers out a question that leaves the brown-haired man looking deeply uncomfortable. A quick shh follows as Lynn covers her mouth, begging her not to broadcast her embarrassing thoughts. The tables have turned as Lynn blushes furiously, his eyes darting away from the pink-haired girl's unexpected behavior. Staring at him with a giant question mark overhead, Manelli wonders if the beer is already going to his head. Lynn clarifies that he missed the fireworks because he was busy standing guard like a responsible, non-partying soldier. Manelli blinks in surprise, her mind racing to connect the dots of who was where while she was panicking. Topping the table, Lynn explains he was far too busy with security matters to enjoy the fancy party upstairs. A sudden blush creeps onto Manelli's cheeks as she remembers the one dance she did have with the Duke. She takes a massive gulp from her cup, trying to drown out the memory of how close Setsu was.
Waving her hands to cool her face, she blames the side effects of her stress for her current state.
Lynn lets out a hearty laugh, finding it genuinely hilarious that he and this chaotic girl are on the same side. Chuckling to himself, Lynn seems to enjoy the absurdity, while Manelli watches him with quiet, bewildered curiosity. Surrounded by an aura of flowers, Lynn looks surprisingly handsome for a guy who just spent all night guarding walls. Manelli's matchmaking instinct kicks back in as she tells Lynn it's high time he settled down and started a family. She lectures him about not breaking hearts, while Lynn insists she's completely misunderstood his interactions with local ladies. Turning beet red again, the brown-haired man looks down, seemingly defeated by Manelli's relentless and unsolicited dating advice. Jumping to his feet with a sudden, "I should go," Lynn beats a hasty retreat before she finds him a bride. Lynn wraps up the tavern talk and offers to be a gentleman by walking Manelli home after her stressful night. Outside under the moonlight, Manelli drops the moving out bomb, citing her outsider status as her main motivation for leaving. The brown-haired man looks like he just saw a ghost, clearly not expecting his favorite counselor to leave the castle. Stretching toward the night sky, the pink-haired girl insists that staying in the castle is bad optics for her career. Lynn asks if the boss knows, but Manelli thinks moving house is far too trivial for a Brand Duke's schedule. Finding a new apartment is hard, even when you've already mentally moved your furniture, the pink-haired girl sighs. Lynn offers his real estate expertise, making Manelli wonder if he's actually being helpful or just avoiding guard duty. A sweet thank you follows, proving that even a grumpy counselor appreciates a little help from her friends. Manelli returns to the room she once shared with her mother, feeling the heavy weight of the past. Late-night vibes hit as the pink-haired girl stands alone, contemplating her life choices and her secret move-out plan. Suddenly, Setsu appears in the shadows, looking like the ultimate dark and broody nocturnal surprise. The Duke questions why she's lurking at this hour, his presence turning the hallway into a high-stakes encounter. Personal space becomes a myth as Setsu leans in close enough to count eyelashes, surrounded by romantic sparkles. The mood shifts when Setsu points out she's drunk and smells like a brewery, which she indignantly denies. Seeing him this vulnerable, Manelli realizes the powerful Duke is acting exactly like the clingy little boy she used to know. Setsu plays the noisy room card, claiming he can't sleep in his own massive, soundproofed ducal quarters. He requests a childhood lullaby, leaving Manelli to wonder if the mighty Duke is actually having nightmares again. A soft smile appears as the counselor prepares to serenade the legendary northern monster into a peaceful sleep. Mission failed as Manelli is the one who ends up fast asleep, looking like a discarded doll on the sofa. Setsu stands over the sleeping girl in the library, looking far more pensive than a man who just wanted a song. The Duke's internal monologue is heavy, processing the news that his favorite counselor is already planning her castle exit. Standing amidst the dusty books, Setsu looks like he's regretting every decision that led to this quiet, lonely moment. Heartbreak hits as he questions why she's distancing herself, despite him following her How to Be a Hero manual to the letter. Swirling dark energy fills the screen, matching the Duke's turbulent emotions as the scene fades into moody shadows. The visual transition gets even darker, proving that royal angst is the most powerful force in the frozen north. A quick sweep of the snowy castle exterior marks the passage of time from a night of drama to morning. Manelli wakes up with a start, her internal clock screaming because this definitely isn't the library sofa she remembers. Confusion reigns as she questions how she teleported from the study to her own cozy bed overnight. Staring at her ceiling, the pink-haired girl tries to reconstruct the fuzzy events of her drunken midnight meeting. The memory of Setsu visiting and heading to the study flashes back, making her face turn a bright, embarrassed pink. She concludes it must have been a dream, since the real Setsu would never leave her hair looking this tragic. Her throat is drier than a desert, making her wonder if she actually sang an entire concert for the Duke. A quiet moment of pondering shows that Manelli is still 100%ing her potentially awkward and very vivid dream. Panic ensues when she notices undone buttons, leading to the ultimate morning after question. How much did she actually drink? A creaking door sounds as the narrator jokes that her alcohol breath could kill a 1,000-year-old romance. Back at work, a massive sneeze erupts from Manelli, proving that nocturnal waltzes and library naps are bad for health. Shauna reacts with theatrical horror, as if a single sneeze just signaled the start of a castle-wide zombie apocalypse. Blaming the outer fortress chill, the pink-haired girl wonders if her immune system finally gave up on her. A brief flashback shows a tiny, adorable Manelli trying to be the world's most supportive daughter to her mother. Shayna initiates Project Quarantine, ordering Manelli into isolation, while the counselor argues that she has a life. Pointing at a mountain of paperwork, Manelli tries to use her workload as a shield against the mandatory nap. Shauna offers a terrifyingly sweet smile, the kind that says she's in charge, and Manelli is going to bed. Defeated and clutching her files, the pink-haired girl trudges away like she's walking to her own doom. Manelli tries to find a silver lining, while the blonde Canaria appears in the hallway like a sparkling plot device. The camera zooms in on Canaria, who looks way too perfect to be wandering around a drafty, cold castle. Recognizing the VIP heroine, Manelli stops in her tracks, her matchmaking radar finally pinging at maximum volume again. A detailed look at Canaria's angelic face proves that main character energy is definitely a visual trait in this world. The blonde beauty remembers the assistant from before and asks for her name, which Manelli provides with a smile. Social distancing before it was cool. Manelli warns the heroine to stay back to avoid catching her cold. Canaria looks shocked by the concept of germs, or perhaps just by how intensely Manelli is protecting her health. Smiling serenely, the pink-haired Manelli radiates enough positivity to power a small village, blissfully unaware of the incoming chaos. Her peace is shattered by a sudden, swift reach that leaves the counselor letting out a startled "eh?" in confusion. Standing in a radiant glow, the girl clutches her documents like a shield, looking like a magical girl without the wand. The blonde-haired Canaria showcases her own special effects, conjuring a swirl of fire that would make any professional pyrotechnician jealous. Canaria explains the legendary red opal phoenix, while the pink-haired girl wonders if this is a history lesson or a magic show. Eyes sparkling with awe, the assistant looks like she just witnessed a miracle, or at least a very high-budget fantasy scene. A dramatic portrait of Setsu highlights his shadow powers, officially crowning him as an overpowered munchkin in this magical world. Proudly holding her pile of paperwork, Manelli looks far too happy for someone whose job description involves eternal, soul-crushing bureaucracy. Disaster strikes with a sudden "kya" as the documents catch fire, while a tiny purple witch mascot watches the literal burnout. The charred remains of the documents smolder on the floor. Talk about hot off the press and an accidental office bonfire. Both girls huddle on the floor, with Canaria apologizing for her overzealous fire magic while trying to cure a common cold. Waving it off with a smile, the pink-haired girl claims that lighting oil lamps often results in accidental arson. Totally normal behavior. A nostalgic flashback shows a younger version of her dozing off with a candle, proving she's been a fire hazard since childhood. Tapping her chin, the girl questions if she's been sleepwalking through life, which would explain a lot of her chaotic decisions. Canaria looks genuinely impressed, realizing that the pink-haired girl handles far more than just simple transcriptions in this draft-heavy duchy. Proudly holding a complex document, she explains that literacy is standard in Alcaman. Who needs a library card when you have survival? Canaria reveals she helped build the first school for commoners, proving she's not just a pretty face, but a literal architect of education. Looking absolutely thrilled, Manelli seems to have found her intellectual soulmate, or at least someone who appreciates a good syllabus. The blonde heroine offers a quick apology, her expression softening as she realizes she might have underestimated her new friend's brains. Modestly downplaying her genius, the girl admits she's just a commoner who happened to be a math prodigy from birth. Canaria's jaw practically hits the floor, baffled that anyone could master arithmetic without a formal, high-priced tutor and 3 degrees. Dropping a total mood killer, Manelli reveals she plans to quit her job the moment the Duke finally finds a wife. The blonde woman looks stunned by the news, her face reflecting the sudden weight of an unplanned and very awkward revelation. A heavy silence fills the air, making the room feel more awkward than a family dinner where someone mentioned politics. A loud, echoing "Pwah" signals the Grand Duke's return, interrupting the tension with a much-needed dose of royal drama. Mentioning the local monster problem, the pink-haired girl explains why the Duke spends his weekends hunting instead of at brunch. A detailed map reveals Alcaman's double-walled defense system, designed to keep the monsters out and the citizens, mostly in one piece. Looking genuinely sad, Canaria reflects on how much pressure the young Duke carries on his armored, monster-fighting shoulders every day. Realizing she's been too distracted by the blonde beauty to focus, the counselor facepalms over her own fangirl behavior. Canaria's expression is filled with concern as she realizes she's already worrying about a Duke she barely even knows yet. She invites the pink-haired girl to greet the returning hero, turning a simple homecoming into a potentially very awkward double date. Offering a playful wink, the girl claims she's cured by Canaria's kindness, proving that optimism is her only actual superpower. Surrounded by blooming roses, the blonde heroine looks like she stepped straight out of a romance novel cover, minus the brooding hero. A flashback shows Canaria with her father, the king, during a much more formal and significantly less arson-filled time. Looking effortlessly elegant, she adjusts her hair, unaware that she was about to be auctioned off to the highest imperial bidder. A golden edict arrives from the emperor, demanding she become his 12th consort. Talk about a royal swipe-left situation. Facing her father's back, Canaria rejects the idea of being wife number 12 in some old man's very crowded harem. Canaria's internal monologue screams against being trapped, insisting she was born for more than just a life in a gilded cage. Her father, the king, turns with a cold gaze, dismissing her desire for independence as nothing more than a foolish dream. He lectures her on the proper life of a princess, which apparently involves 0 freedom and 100 political bargaining chip value. Looking absolutely devastated, Canaria realizes her childhood home is no longer a sanctuary, but a prison with better wallpaper. Despite her hopes that her father would choose her over war,
He pushed her into the Emperor's arms without hesitation. Cloaked in shadow and moonlight, the princess prepares for a desperate escape, choosing the unknown over a life of royal submission.
She flees into the night, heading toward the autonomous territory of Alcaman, where even the Emperor's long arms can't reach her. Her final thought is one of pure defiance. Anything is better than becoming a trophy for a man who collects consorts like stamps.
Looking toward the horizon with new resolve, the blonde fugitive prepares to write her own script, starting with her arrival in Alcaman. The grand, empty bedroom stands ready, a silent testament to the luxury she left behind for a chance at real freedom.
Canaria offers a polite smile and a thank you, though the atmosphere in the palace remains noticeably stiff.
The maid trio stares back with expressions so intense they could probably boil tea just by looking at it.
Looking troubled, the blonde beauty realizes that royal life involves a lot more judging glares than she ever expected. Canaria wonders if she's accidentally playing the role of a homewrecker in someone else's carefully constructed fairy tale. Her internal monologue hits high gear as she questions who truly holds the title of the Duke's chosen one. Meanwhile, Minelli beams with radiant joy, blissfully unaware that her career, and maybe her life, is about to get complicated. Setsu returns from the hunt, leading a small army like a man who just conquered a very expensive brunch. Looking effortlessly cool in his fur-lined cape, the Grand Duke reminds everyone why he's the main character of this drama. "You've returned, Your Grace," Minelli chirps, performing her best "I definitely didn't burn anything today" greeting alongside Canaria. Setsu skips the small talk, immediately suspicious of why his favorite paper pusher and the princess are suddenly best friends. With wide-eyed innocence, Minelli explains she was just giving the future Duchess a crash course in Alcaman's local politics. Canaria suddenly points a finger of doom, demanding Setsu fire his assistant immediately, while Minelli experiences a total brain freeze. The sudden betrayal leaves the room feeling colder than the winter winds, leaving everyone wondering where the hostility originated. Setsu remains silent, his stoic gaze suggesting he's mentally calculating how much paperwork he'll have to do without an assistant. Canaria doubles down, accusing Minelli of leaking sensitive state secrets to a total stranger without even a second thought. She laments that the pink-haired girl blabbed about Alcaman's situation like she was reading from a public gossip column. Looking genuinely appalled, Canaria questions if such a loose-lipped assistant could ever be trusted with royal administrative duties. A bead of sweat rolls down Minelli's face as she realizes her friendly tour was actually a massive security breach. Setsu turns to his assistant, asking for the truth, while Minelli stammers like a broken record player in distress. Her heart sinks into her boots as she realizes that honesty might be a very expensive policy in this castle. She reflects on her status as a mere lucky commoner, reminded that a golden opportunity can vanish in an instant. A soft memory of childhood companionship with Lin highlights a simpler time when social status didn't involve fiery accusations. Looking downcast, Minelli accepts her fate, acknowledging that she was never truly meant for this high-stakes aristocratic life anyway. Lin looks genuinely concerned, his hand outstretched as if he's trying to catch the falling pieces of her career. Minelli tries to spin a 5-day suspension into a paid vacation, proving she's the undisputed queen of toxic positivity. Lin is baffled by her lack of anger, but she insists that getting suspended was entirely her own mistake. Forcing a brave smile, the pink-haired girl masks her heartbreak with a performance that deserves a local theater award. Canaria watches with a sharp, calculating gaze, perhaps realizing that her rival is actually just a very confused optimist. Lin wonders if Minelli is testing him, while she lets out a frustrated huff over the whole awkward situation. In a sudden pivot, the knight invites Minelli to his family home, essentially suggesting a meet-the-parents pity date.
Manelli blinks in total confusion, her brain processing the invitation with all the speed of a dial-up modem.
Lin blushes furiously, explaining that his parents might have some leads on a new, less stabby job for her. Fearing he's coming on too strong, the poor guy starts backpedaling so fast he might actually travel through time. A genuine, sweet smile finally returns to Manelli's face, signaling that she actually appreciates his clumsy, well-meaning gesture. Lin looks like he just won the lottery, his face lighting up with a glow that could rival the sun. Standing tall and blushing, the knight feels like a hero, despite the fact that he just invited his crush over. Packing her bags, Manelli prepares to leave the inner city, clutching a white cloth like a flag of temporary surrender. She hauls her suitcase toward the exit, a lone pink-haired fugitive escaping the high-stakes drama of the Duke's court. Pausing at the door, she looks back with a soft, melancholy expression, already missing the chaos she just escaped. She wonders if Setsu will manage his nightmares without her, proving that her maternal instincts are a permanent job requirement. The scene shifts back to the present as the pink-haired girl works diligently at a desk that is surprisingly fire-free. Writing a heartfelt letter, she decides to view her current situation as a rare vacation from her usual life of chaos. A close-up of a blue eye suggests a moment of deep, possibly plot-altering reflection for the woman with the pink hair. Arriving at Lin's doorstep, Manelli calls out for his mother, ready to trade royal documents for some home-cooked comfort. 3 chaotic children burst out, screaming that their big brother finally brought a girlfriend home for the family to roast. Lin desperately tries to control the tiny mob, insisting that she's just a friend while his ears turn bright red. A man with a kind gaze and short hair appears, watching the comedic circus unfold with a knowing paternal smirk. He tells her to skip the formalities and just call him uncle, which is basically a verbal welcome to the family hug. A grim reminder notes that Lin's father sacrificed his right arm to a monster, ending his career as the guard captain. Despite his injury, the former captain warmly invites her in, proving that hospitality is the strongest defense in Alkaman. The kids aren't giving up, dragging Lin's mother into the hallway to announce that the marriage candidate has finally arrived. Lin's mother offers a soft, welcoming smile, looking like she's already mentally planning the guest list for the wedding. Manelli introduces herself as Advisor Bava, but the mother already knows exactly who she is, and she's clearly a fan. Lin's mother is absolutely delighted, her eyes sparkling with the kind of joy only a potential mother-in-law can feel. Lin stammers through a denial while his mother playfully teases his shyness, essentially planning the wedding in her head. The house is a whirlwind of domestic chaos, but Lin's family makes the crowded kitchen feel like a warm hug. Manelli sips her tea with a bewildered expression, feeling like a pink-haired fish out of very cozy domestic water. She explains her plan for independence, citing Canaria's arrival as the perfect reason to finally move out of the castle. Lin's parents share a look of utter confusion, wondering why anyone would ever want to leave the palace's premium catering. With a polite smile, Manelli questions if her desire for a fresh start outside the city walls is really that shocking. She reflects on how Canaria's presence highlights her own awkward role at the castle, proving 3 is definitely a crowd. Clutching her teacup, the pink-haired advisor prepares for a life of independence, far away from royal drama and judging princesses. Lin's mother offers a supportive smile, welcoming her for 5 days while promising to help her find a new home. Lin looks remarkably pensive, his blushing face suggesting he's doing some internal emotional math that involves his favorite advisor. Manelli admits she's a disaster in the kitchen, but the mother insists Advisor Bava is renowned for her sharp mind. Night falls over the quiet house, bringing a hint of sweetness, and the rare sound of a castle-free evening. Manelli watches the young girl sleep, her maternal instincts kicking in as a gentle snoring sound fills the room. She marvels at the child's porcelain-perfect skin, wondering if all children are this naturally photogenic or if it's just her. Giving in to the cuteness overload, she pokes the girl's cheek, confirming that small humans are indeed adorable when quiet. Sitting on the edge of the bed, Manelli looks out at the moonlight, finally enjoying a moment of actual peace. Despite the comfort, she feels a twinge of boredom, as if she's wearing a cozy sweater that just doesn't fit right. Suddenly, a strange sensation washes over her, her eyes widening as she senses something lurking in the shadows. A dark serpentine shadow slithers across the room, prompting a shocked gasp from the pink-haired girl. The child wakes up groggily, asking what's wrong, while Manelli wonders if she's just hallucinating from too much domestic bliss. Morning light hits the grand castle, a stark reminder of the high-stakes world Manelli left behind for 5 days. Boots click against the carpet as Lin notes that his family, shocker, is already head over heels in love with his friend. Lin reports back to the Grand Duke, admitting he was genuinely surprised Manelli agreed to follow him home. A close-up of the knight's violet eye suggests he's hiding a few secrets, or just a really intense crush. A flashback reveals a young Lin calling out for Manel, proving their bond goes way back to the playground days. Little Lin spots young Manelli in her puffy green dress, a childhood memory that's clearly still living rent-free in his head. He watches as young Manelli laughs with a dark-haired boy, presumably a young Setsu, looking like the ultimate third wheel. The memory of their trio highlights the long-standing dynamic between the knight, the advisor, and their stoic Grand Duke. Setsu snaps Lin back to reality, his calm voice echoing through the hall as he addresses his loyal knight. Looking every bit the brooding Grand Duke, Setsu stands amidst white roses, the literal poster boy for tall, dark, and complicated. He dismisses any talk of debt, insisting their relationship is built on something far deeper than mere political favors. Setsu observes an ominous, dark crimson shadow coiling around Lin, wondering if Manelli is blissfully unaware of the danger. A soft vision of Manelli smiling suggests that even the stoic Duke has a soft spot for his favorite pink-haired headache. Lin stares ahead with renewed resolve, convinced there's still a chance for him to win the ultimate prize, Manelli's heart. Setsu looks genuinely startled, perhaps realizing that his knight is more of a romantic rival than he ever anticipated. The two men face off in the Grand Hall, proving that the original story script is still very much in play. Lin internally declares war on the Duke's feelings, vowing that when it comes to love, he won't be backing down. The sun rises on the third morning at the house, where the real battle baking is about to begin. Manelli wrestles with a giant ball of dough, discovering that bread making is a full-body workout she didn't sign up for. Lin's mother chirps encouragement while Manelli realizes that her sharp mind is currently being defeated by some sticky flour. The secret family stew recipe is finally unveiled, a ritual so exclusive it probably requires a secret handshake and an apron. Eager to prove she's not a total kitchen disaster, Manelli pumps herself up for the culinary challenge of her life. She asks about the main ingredient, only to learn that the fresh catch of the day is a wild rabbit. The reality of butchering a fluffy bunny hits Manelli like a ton of bricks, turning her kitchen confidence into pure horror. She collapses in a heap of culinary despair, realizing that beginner-level cooking usually doesn't involve taxidermy skills. A cartoon rabbit ghost bids a sassy adios, leaving the house behind for a much less stew-oriented afterlife. Manelli pivots to childcare, helping one of Lin's younger brothers get dressed, while a purple witch girl offers some meta-commentary. She focuses on the task at hand, proving that dressing a small child is significantly less traumatic than butchering a rabbit.
The kid drops a total bombshell, asking if she's hearing wedding bells, leaving poor Manelli absolutely short-circuited and speechless. Lin tries to explain he's just hungry, while his younger brothers relentlessly tease him about finally getting married. A protective younger sister declares Manelli is hers alone, effectively starting a big sis custody battle in the library. Manelli is mortified as the girl claims they share a bed, making the advisor feel like her own personal property. The winter sun sets over the cozy manor as a voice announces that it is finally time to feast. A spread of warm stew, mussels, and cider awaits, looking far better than any palace's premium catering. Watching the kids eat, Manelli realizes that managing children requires more endurance than a marathon through the desert. She gazes at the roasted meat, silently admitting that her administrative skills don't translate to carving a rabbit. The dinner table descends into pure, unadulterated chaos, leaving poor Lin shouting for order in his own home. Walking through the snow with a bucket, the pink-haired girl enjoys a quiet moment of chilly domestic reality. Joined by Lin, she wonders if she actually possesses the survival skills needed for a life of independence. Manelli gushes over his precious siblings, but Lin just feels guilty for subjecting her to his family's circus. The knight praises her natural maternal touch, while he laments that he only knows how to yell. Manelli proudly recalls being Setz's original partner in crime, enjoying a momentary boost to her self-esteem. A sudden, earth-shattering realization hits her, her eyes widening as the pieces of her past finally click together. Looking at an empty crib, she realizes that the Duke has quite literally been by her side since infancy. A heartwarming flashback reveals baby Setsu and baby Manelli, proving their childhood friend status is officially ancient history. Baby Setsu offers a gummy, toothless smile, proving he was once a tiny ray of sunshine before the brooding began. Back in the snow, Manelli laughs off her verbal slip-up, hoping Lin didn't notice her internal existential crisis. Lin assumes she's just stressed about her suspension, completely missing the romantic epiphany she just experienced. He looks at the water bucket, expressing genuine gratitude that his friend has bonded so well with his family. Lin looks away, his voice dropping as he prepares to deliver a speech that probably ends with a confession. Just as the knight prepares to declare who holds his heart, the air thickens with heavy romantic tension. Whoosh! A magical blue vortex erupts out of nowhere, rudely interrupting what was about to be a very dramatic moment. Manelli shields her eyes as the blizzard and magic swirl together, creating a scene straight out of a disaster movie. As the light fades, she wonders aloud if the weather or the local magic just had a mental breakdown. Lin agrees with her assessment, both of them standing bewildered in the aftermath of the strange blue phenomenon. Noticing a leaf in his hair, Manelli reaches up, plucking it out with a gentleness that definitely confuses poor Lin. They stand inches apart, the close proximity turning the snowy air into a silent, blushing mess for both of them. Lin stares at her with an intensity that suggests he's either very in love or calculating his next move. Their feet remain planted in the snow, capturing a frozen moment where nobody knows who should speak first. Manelli requests a solo walk to clear her head, and Lin politely retreats, giving his crush some much-needed space. Carrying the buckets toward the manor, the knight walks away, leaving the pink-haired girl alone with her thoughts. Standing in the winter chill, she wonders how she could have been so blind to the feelings taking root. She reflects on the exact moment her heart decided to go rogue, realizing her feelings are deeper than expected. Overwhelmed by her own discovery, Manelli hides her face in her hands, wishing the snow could cool her blush. A tall, dark figure appears in the distance,
his presence turning the quiet forest into a high-stakes royal meeting. Gasping in shock, she turns to find none other than Grand Duke Setsu standing right behind her. The black-haired man looks down at her, his regal cloak and cold gaze making him like a winter god. They face off in the snow, the advisor and the duke finally meeting far away from palace walls.
Setsu looks remarkably somber, his expression suggesting he didn't just come here for the scenic winter views. Minelli argues that his presence is inappropriate, fearing the gossip his obvious favoritism will cause among the staff.
The Duke looks offended, asking if she truly finds his personal visit to be beneath his royal dignity. She insists a lowly commoner like her isn't worth his time, claiming his true happiness lies elsewhere. Reaching out, Setsu's gloved hand grazes her cheek, silencing her protests with a single, heart-stopping gesture. He challenges her assumptions, asking who exactly told her that his happiness was anywhere but right here. With a pained look, Setsu admits he's absolutely miserable simply because she isn't at the castle anymore. Minelli stares at him, her brain short-circuiting as the stoic Duke delivers a confession that changes everything. He admits he made a terrible mistake, his regret as visible as the steam from his breath in the cold. Minelli points out that she's still technically on suspension, unable to return to the castle for 2 more days. They stand together in the silent, falling snow. 2 people caught between royal duty and their very complicated hearts. Setsu stares into the distance, his brooding expression perfectly matching the freezing, snow-covered landscape behind him. Minelli stares blankly, her internal monologue trailing off as she struggles to process her increasingly chaotic romantic life. Looking utterly defeated, the pink-haired girl wears a pained expression that says she'd rather be anywhere but this snowy mess. After firmly telling the Duke to beat it for 2 days, Minelli wonders if her social skills are officially broken. She stares into the void, reaching the scientific conclusion that her life has become an absolute, unmitigated disaster zone. Her hands tighten with a sudden, firm grip on her skirt as she realizes leaving the castle didn't stop the Duke. After a sleepless night of tossing and turning, Minelli treats her breakfast roll like a consolation prize for her exhaustion. Poking her bread, she experiences a mid-meal epiphany about why the Duke is suddenly living rent-free in her heart. Lin bursts in with the energy of a man who hasn't slept either, suggesting a casual stroll to clear the air. He proposes a local tour before their return, while Minelli clutches her bun like a shield against more dramatic revelations. Lin's younger siblings peek through the doorway, looking like they're ready to charge admission for the upcoming romantic comedy. Standing in the snow, Lin presents a house with a flourish, looking like a real estate agent about to close. The door handle lets out a sharp, satisfying click as Lin explains the owner is away, making this the perfect getaway. Minelli lights up like a Christmas tree when she hears the rent is cheap and the location is Duke-free. The cozy, sun-drenched interior looks far more inviting than the cold castle walls she's used to dealing with daily. Overcome with domestic joy, the pink-haired girl practically tackles a chair, finally finding a piece of furniture she truly loves. Discovering the place is fully furnished is the win she desperately needed, even if Lin looks a little concerned. Radiant with gratitude, she beams at her knight, officially crowning him the MVP of her house-hunting journey. Lin smiles back with a look of pure, unadulterated adoration that could probably melt all the snow in the kingdom. He encourages her independence, though his supportive tone carries the weight of a man about to drop another heavy truth. A heavy step sounds as Lin gets serious, his voice dropping as he asks for a moment of her time. Her fingers tighten with a firm grip on her sleeve as she begs him for time to organize her panicking thoughts.
The brown-haired man gives a gentle, understanding smile, proving he's far more patient than the average brooding love interest. Wrapped in her winter hood, Manelli offers a silent apology to Lin, her guilt rising faster than the morning sun.
A sudden army arrival turns the quiet morning into a military parade, complete with red flags and very menacing armor.
Hiding in her fur-lined cloak, Manelli prepares her best "I'm just a commoner" face for the arriving high-ranking guests.
A gloved hand reaches out with a casual greeting, rudely interrupting her attempt to remain invisible in the snow. Manelli introduces herself with formal administrative precision, only to realize the newcomer is playing a completely different social game. She fumes internally after being called lady, wondering if her official title was written in invisible ink this morning. The man reveals himself to be a pink-haired charmer with a fur collar and a dangerously smug, purple-eyed gaze. Manelli stares at him, deciding he looks less like a royal and more like a guy who belongs on a tropical beach. Her brain short-circuits as a sudden, flirtatious moi sounds when he plants a bold kiss on the back of her hand. With a playful wink, the stranger declares they're soulmates, officially entering the race for the Most Shameless Man award. Our heroine wonders what dimension this crazy person crawled out of, and why he's currently terrorizing her local castle entrance. He strikes a pose that screams, "I'm beautiful, and I know it," completely unfazed by her obvious, seething social discomfort. She throws up the universal hard pass sign, reminding him that familiarity is usually earned, not handed out like flyers. Labeling him a nameless extra, she plots his immediate eviction before he can do any more damage to her sanity.
The man skips the formal names entirely, suggesting older brother as a cozy alternative to his actual royal title.
Manelli's brain hits a critical error, her jaw dropping as she tries to process the sheer audacity of this man. He insists there's no pressure, urging her to try out the pet name like it's a perfectly normal social request. He doubles down on the older brother bit while Chibi Manelli screams that she's a proud, very annoyed only child. He pivots to Josh, but Manelli is already done with this conversation, begging him to just take the no gracefully. He lets out a breezy swoosh as he finally gives up, agreeing to stick to names for the time being. Realizing he's the crown prince, Manelli narrows her eyes, determined to find a flaw and kick him out immediately. Waving an official document, she tries to play the no entry card, citing administrative difficulties with his royal pass. Josh drops the ultimate bombshell. He'll only stay if she agrees to be his personal shadow for the duration. Her eyes go wide as saucers, her soul practically leaving her body at the thought of more overtime with a lunatic. When she asks about his actual mission, the prince just shrugs it off, proving work-life balance is easy when you're royal. Manelli stares in silent, wide-eyed disbelief, officially realizing that the Duke was actually the sane one in this story. The scene shifts back to the grand, sunlit halls where the narrator prepares to explain how this disaster officially started. Josh casually announces he's brought a guest to the castle, while Manelli looks like she needs a permanent vacation. Fearing the pink-haired chaos, Manelli silently prays for Setsu to just kick the smug newcomer out already. In the grand throne room, Setsu demands to know the stranger's name, as if he's interviewing for a villain role. Setsu gets defensive, asking why the Marquis is eyeballing his favorite advisor instead of focusing on royal business. Chibi Manelli cheers from the sidelines, thrilled to see her Duke finally putting his brooding energy to good use. Josh drops the bold confession that he simply likes the young lady, leaving Manelli utterly shell-shocked. Tension spikes as Setsu blocks the view with a cold, narrow-eyed gaze. The Duke threatens to evict the Marquis for his blatant lack of manners. Josh retaliates with a political nuke, warning that throwing him out will trigger a full-blown capital army invasion. Manelli panics as the threat of war looms, her social anxiety suddenly escalating into a potential national crisis. She watches the two powerful men face off, feeling like the prize in a game she never signed up for.
Setsu calls the bluff, coldly telling Josh to take his princess and beat it, much to Minelli's horror. A cold sweat breaks as Minelli realizes that if the Marquis leaves, her peaceful castle life might vanish too. Crossing his arms, Josh challenges the Duke's authority, asking he questions the princess's authenticity, using administrative doubt as a shield to stay exactly where he isn't wanted. Flashing another shameless wink, Josh proposes a deal to crash at the castle for a while. Chibi Minelli is metaphorically struck by lightning, realizing that the pink-haired menace is officially moving in. Josh doubles down on the pressure, hinting that he might just go over Setsu's head to the Emperor. Setsu admits this is an interesting proposition, his mind likely calculating a dozen ways to end the conversation. The Duke falls into a deep, brooding silence, looking like he's trying to manifest a way out of this drama. Minelli stares blankly, waiting for her boss to say something, anything that doesn't involve inviting the lunatic inside. She gazes at Setsu with concern, wondering if his brain just short-circuited under the sheer weight of the Marquis's audacity. Josh reaches out for a handshake, framing his unwelcome intrusion as a cultural exchange with the South. A firm, crunch-inducing handshake seals the deal, as Setsu reluctantly agrees to let the Marquis stay. Josh promises a handsome reward for the Duke's hospitality, provided he finds whatever mysterious thing he's hunting for. Minelli watches them from the shadows, her internal detective wondering exactly what thing could be worth all this trouble. Late at night, a sleep-deprived Setsu massages his temples, wishing Minelli would stop her nightly serenades. He recalls a radiant, smiling Minelli surrounded by flowers, proving she's living rent-free in his head even while sleeping. In the dark, the Duke looks pained and lonely, his brooding dial turned up to a solid 11. Staring out at the moonlit castle, Setsu desperately begs Minelli to return and end his silent, snowy suffering. Back in reality, a confused maid asks for guest room assignments, realizing the castle is about to get crowded. A servant reports the guest's bizarre request to pitch a tent in the garden, adding glamping to the castle's problems. Snapping into administrative mode, Minelli orders a banquet, treating the chaotic arrival like a high-stakes dinner party. She commands the staff to investigate the tent request, provide housing, and confiscate all weapons for safety. The staff salutes their efficient advisor, confirming that the arrangements are complete as she takes full control. Minelli asks a bespectacled aide to dig up dirt on Marquis Brayler, officially starting her counterintelligence mission. She fumes over the Marquis's arrogance, determined to knock him down a peg for acting so entitled around Setsu. In a flashback, Josh winks while explaining his lack of honorifics, proving his smugness is a consistent character trait. Minelli reflects on the rarity of pink hair, finding it suspicious that the Marquis didn't find her look surprising. Pondering the Southern connection, she wonders if her mystery father was actually from the Marquis's homeland. She quickly brushes off the identity crisis, deciding that her family history is a problem for another day. Running off in a chibi blur, she declares that modern society is far too busy for these complicated romantic subplots. The red-haired aide returns with a folder full of secrets, having successfully completed her background check. Minelli examines the report, her serious expression suggesting that the Marquis is more than just a pretty face. Her jaw drops in genuine shock as she discovers the Marquis's true identity is way beyond her wildest imagination. A grand crest reveals the truth. The pink-haired pest is actually Admiral Josh Braylerpasa, a high-ranking powerhouse. Minelli processes the intel that Admiral Pasa practically rules the South, realizing he's a much bigger political fish than she expected. Letting out a tired, Of disbelief, Manelli feels the weight of the Marquis's status while her red-haired aide stands by.
She ponders the original plot where the crown prince was the intended guest, wondering what cosmic mistake brought this pink-haired chaos instead. Recalling their meeting, Setsu and Josh seal their reluctant pact with a handshake, with the Marquis promising a generous reward for his discovery.
Manelli questions the vague reward just as a blonde princess glides into view, clearly ready to add more drama to the day. A close-up of the newcomer's ornate purple and gold dress reveals a royal who clearly brought her entire palace wardrobe to the north. The blonde princess questions the timing of the door opening, catching Manelli off guard with her sharp, regal presence. Wearing a sugary, sweet smile, the princess reminds Advisor Bava that she should still be under disciplinary action for her past mistakes. The red-haired aide panics with a sudden "whoa, whoa" as Manelli explains her special guest duties have officially canceled her time out. When the princess offers to host the guests, Manelli makes a quick exit, citing banquet preparations to escape the uncomfortable social trap. Manelli walks away, but the blonde princess follows closely, leaving the red-haired aide deeply worried about the impending collision of egos. The princess observes that Manelli seems like a very important person in the castle, likely sizing up her competition for authority. Manelli plays it cool, but internally wonders if she's just become public enemy number one for the blonde royal newcomer. The princess insists on helping, though Manelli suggests she'd be better off getting dressed for the banquet she's supposedly so excited about. Claiming she hates extravagance, the princess doubts Setsu will attend, dropping hints about his usual antisocial habits to rattle Manelli. Manellis's mind flashes back to a moonlit encounter with Setsu, questioning if that specific night broke the story's original timeline forever. Complaining of a sharp headache, Manelli realizes the narrative distortion is literally starting to hurt her brain as the plot goes off rails. Manelli stumbles through the hall while the princess offers some unsolicited decorating advice about using blue stardust on the castle walls. Dizziness takes over as Manelli nearly collapses, her world spinning faster than the princess's confusing and manipulative royal schemes. A sudden, firm hand grabs Manelli's shoulder, and a pained "ugh" escapes her as she narrowly avoids a faceplant on the carpet. Josh appears with a cheeky wink and a greeting, proving he has a sixth sense for catching beautiful, fainting castle administrators. The blonde princess demands to know who this man is, but Josh shuts her down with a casual, dismissive lack of interest. Fury boils over as the princess grits her teeth, clearly unused to being treated like an uninvited background extra by a stranger. After being called rude, Josh notes the princess is exactly like a member of the family, unintentionally triggering a royal meltdown. The princess storms away in a huff, leaving a very confused Manelli to wonder why the hall just became a social war zone. Josh is baffled by the drama, asking Manelli why the princess got so offended by a perfectly normal family comparison. Flashing a bright grin, Josh doubles down on the "we look like family" bit, much to Manelli's growing social and emotional exhaustion. He declares they are destined to be because of their matching hair, officially winning the award for most persistent and shameless flirt. Manelli offers a polite thank you for the save, though she's clearly reconsidering her no weapons allowed policy for the Marquis. Josh glows with smug satisfaction against a background of roses, fully aware that his charm is a dangerous tactical weapon of mass distraction. Manelli admits he's undeniably handsome, but remains baffled by how poorly he handles simple conversations with actual princesses. Walking together, Josh sighs about how frustrating it is when people don't understand his simple, yet incredibly annoying personality. Josh claims he detected the scent of flames on the princess, suspecting she might be a spy from a rival kingdom. Manelli calls absolute nonsense on his flame-sensing powers, insisting the only thing she smelled was a bouquet of fresh freesias. She asks why he isn't rushing the princess to the capital, clearly hoping to export the royal drama as soon as possible. Josh refuses to leave without trying northern food first, prompting Manelli to question if the admiral actually does any real work. Defending his honor, Josh insists he's a workaholic, though his current vacationing in the north vibe suggests he's just playing hooky. The scene shifts to the southern harbor, where Admiral Pasa supposedly spends his time making sea routes safe for trade and commerce. His job apparently involves hunting pirates and stopping illegal trade, which sounds way more productive than his current flirtation marathon with Manelli. Manelli scoffs at the idea of him being a serious lawman, finding his tall tales of pirate hunting completely and utterly impossible. Sweating under pressure, Manelli realizes Josh's gaze is surprisingly sharp for a man who acts like a professional pink-haired beach bum. When Josh asks what's wrong, Manelli lies through her teeth, claiming she's just giving his character design a very thorough inspection. She realizes she might have misjudged the Marquis, while Josh watches her with a look of mild, focused suspicion. A close-up of Josh's face reveals a level of handsomeness that should honestly be illegal for a secondary character in this story. Manelli questions why an extra in her life is this good-looking, struggling to maintain her professional administrative distance from him. She notes his smooth, dark skin and handsome features, confirming that he's definitely not from around these snowy, pale northern parts. Obsessing over his double eyelids and surprisingly delicate eyelashes, Manelli's internal monologue has officially entered the crush danger zone. Josh catches her staring and offers a knowing smirk, clearly enjoying the effect his high visual stats are having on her. Noticing their matching hair, she admits the Marquis is surprisingly handsome, though her brain refuses to enjoy it. He asks if she looks like her father, a question that sends Manelli's internal monologue into a confused tailspin. A tiny purple witch waves hello, appearing as a cheerful promotional break in the heavy royal drama. He drops a final bombshell, suggesting she must take after her father a lot, hinting at a family connection she wasn't expecting. Josh walks away with a mysterious, satisfied smile, leaving a stunned Manelli standing in the hall with 1,000 new questions. Josh wonders about his parentage, while Manelli questions his logic for guessing about a mother he clearly knows. Manelli reveals she was raised alone, never seeing her father's face, making family tree day at school quite awkward. She credits the late Grand Duke for her survival in the north, walking through the halls of her sanctuary. Josh asks why she doesn't just ask her mother now, proving that admiral-level logic is sometimes just basic common sense. Sensing he touched a nerve, Josh offers a sincere apology for his thoughtless comments about her orphan status. Grabbing her hand, Josh pities her difficult upbringing, clearly overestimating the tragedy of a life without a deadbeat dad. Manelli offers a gentle smile, insisting she was never lonely thanks to the kindness of her childhood benefactor. A warm flashback shows young Manelli and her mother, remembering how Setsu provided them with a comfortable life. Young Setsu appears in her memory, a noble boy who treated a commoner girl with surprising and enduring kindness. Josh suggests a missing father might be a hidden noble, promising an instant status reversal, like a royal lottery ticket. Manelli rejects the idea, viewing an irresponsible father as a burden rather than a blessing. Josh finally sees her point. Standing before massive doors, Manelli wonders if she should care about a man she's never even met. The staff swarms with banquet questions, proving that even internal monologues can't escape the demands of castle administration. The red-haired aide startles Manelli, cutting through the administrative noise to drag her away for an urgent task. Ignoring Manelli's frantic questions about fires or food, the aide insists she follow her for a serious emergency. The emergency is a gorgeous blue dress from the storage room, once belonging to the late Grand Duchess herself. The aide demands Manelli dress up to stop people from underestimating her gentle face.
It's time for a power makeover.
Realizing the aide is fuming over Princess Canaria's attitude, Minelli finds the red-haired girl's loyalty both sweet and terrifying.
The aide rants about the princess's arrogance, while a chibi version questions why a probation guest is so bossy.
Minelli bursts into laughter, finding the aide's fierce protectiveness far more entertaining than any actual royal social drama.
The red-haired aide notes that Minelli isn't usually one to let disrespect slide, pushing her toward a stylish revenge. Reflecting on her high expectations for the original story, Minelli realizes real life is far messier than any novel.
She recalls Canaria's perfect design, wondering if the story's destined romance was just a plot point she can ignore.
Standing over the dress, the aide offers surprisingly deep advice. People don't always fit together as perfectly as furniture. Minelli realizes she was too busy acting out a script instead of living her life. She's done playing the extra. She declares that this world isn't just a novel anymore. It's time to start writing her own chapters. Surrounded by flowers, a beaming Minelli thanks the aide for the much-needed reality check and the gorgeous gown. Sudden maid attack. Two staff members grab Minelli, ready to unleash their suppressed fashion talents on their unsuspecting boss. The maids demand total trust, while Minelli looks like she's about to be kidnapped by a very enthusiastic glam squad. It turns out the staff has been itching to fix her style for ages, wounding her administrative pride significantly. They drag her off to the dressing room while the red-haired aide watches the fashion abduction with professional satisfaction. As sunset paints the sky, the castle prepares for a night that will definitely break the original story's pacing. Under the moonlight, the Grand Duchess's dress shimmers with a magical glow, signaling that the makeover was a success. Setsu stands tall in his dark uniform, looking like the brooding male lead he was born to be. Minelli arrives, looking absolutely regal in the blue gown. The transformation is so good, it should be considered a tactical advantage. A gloved hand reaches out, a classic will you dance move that carries enough romantic tension to power the castle. Setsu asks if she still plans to refuse his hand, his gaze as intense as a final exam she didn't study for. Minelli looks completely stunned, realizing that the cold duke is actually making a very public, very bold romantic move. He stands his ground, waiting for her answer, while the room likely holds its collective breath in the background. Princess Canaria watches the interaction, her silent observation hinting at a very complicated three-way social disaster in the making. The trio forms a tense triangle of high fashion and higher stakes, proving the banquet is officially a battlefield. Across the room, Princess Canaria offers Setsu a formal apology, desperately trying to salvage her royal reputation. Watching them, Minelli's thoughts drift back to Setsu, the man who definitely isn't sticking to her internal script. Canaria begs for forgiveness, her earlier arrogance replaced by a plea for Setsu to stop judging her so harshly. The princess reaches out to touch his chest, attempting a classic romantic gesture that Setsu clearly didn't request. With a sharp, decisive movement, Setsu intercepts her hand, effectively putting the princess in a social timeout. Witnessing the rejection, Minelli's face turns bright red as she processes the sheer awkwardness of royal dating. Canaria remains determined, convincing herself that her pushy behavior is actually for Setsu's ultimate happiness and benefit. Minelli realizes desperation stems from a desire to avoid a marriage to the creepy old emperor. A flashback reveals Canaria truly liked the crown prince, seeing him as her only ticket out of a nightmare. Shocked, Minelli realizes her outsider knowledge of the original story's romances was completely and utterly wrong. Real life hits hard as Setsu claims Minelli as his partner, holding her hand with protective, Duke-level intensity. Canaria explodes in rage, insulted that she's being sidelined for someone she considers a mere northern commoner.
Setsu remains unfazed, prioritizing his earlier promise to Manelli over any royal temper tantrums or social etiquette.
Manelli looks up in pure disbelief, wondering when she became the center of a duke's bold romantic declaration. When the princess questions northern law, Setsu delivers the ultimate power move. He is the law here. Trembling with fury, Canaria grips her dress as she realizes her royal status doesn't work on the Grand Duke. She demands that Setsu cast Manelli aside immediately, refusing to accept a commoner as a legitimate rival.
Canaria accuses him of being blinded by a pretty face and disregarding every tradition held sacred by the nobility.
As dark energy begins to swirl, the princess declares she's done playing nice with these ignorant northern fools. Turning her back on the pair, Canaria retreats in a huff, leaving behind a wake of ominous, shadowy resentment. Setsu watches her go, noting that her spoiled upbringing has left her completely incapable of choosing her words wisely. His eyes flash with a cold, terrifying light as he contemplates the princess's utter lack of self-control. Panicked by the shift in the atmosphere, Manelli calls out to Setsu, hoping to de-escalate his rising, dark power. Setsu stands wreathed in shadows while Josh watches from afar, finding the unfolding disaster to be peak entertainment. Josh maintains his carefree grin, clearly enjoying the fact that he isn't the one dealing with the angry Duke. The banquet hall becomes a tense battlefield as the main players divide, each harboring their own secret agendas. Above the chaos, the ornate ceiling glitters, oblivious to the fact that the social hierarchy is currently imploding. Setsu escorts Canaria through the hall, fulfilling his host duties while maintaining a wall of icy professional distance. From across the room, Canaria glares at Manelli, who is now stuck having dinner with the meddlesome admiral. The raging spirit power finally subsides, but the tension between the two couples remains thicker than the banquet gravy. Reaching for a moment of peace, Setsu attempts to compose himself before continuing with the night's formal festivities. A massive dark cobra looms in a vision, representing the devouring evil entity that barely appeared in the original book. Setsu is framed as the host of this power, a man hiding a terrifying secret beneath his perfect military posture.
Manelli realizes why he hid the spirit, yet she finds his presence comforting rather than frightening, is in the eye of the beholder.
She notes that Setsu and Canaria are now acting like civil rulers, their earlier tension replaced by professional mutual respect. Manelli doubts the fire-wielding princess could handle Setsu's dark power, questioning the destined match logic once and for all. Canaria turns away with a somber expression, perhaps realizing she's no longer the main character in this specific northern tale.
Pink-haired Josh suddenly invades Manelli's personal space, proving that being a handsome admiral doesn't mean you have boundaries.
He smugly demands thanks for his help today, causing Manelli to experience a very justified, wide-eyed social panic.
Josh leans in with a smirk while Manelli wonders why her life has become a magnet for high-ranking, pink-haired chaos.
Manelli questions Josh's suspicious kindness while he plays the role of a confused, pink-haired flirt. She stands alone in her borrowed finery, looking like a princess but feeling like an administrative target. Josh offers a subtle smirk, clearly plotting to turn this simple stroll into a full-blown romantic subplot. As they walk, Josh quizzes her on her long tenure as an aide, fishing for more personal details. He notes she doesn't seem the type for hard labor, continuing his relentless campaign of charm and confusion. Manelli's internal alarm bells ring as she realizes just how much attention this extra character is paying her. Seated across from Josh, Manelli lets out a mental groan, realizing her quiet administrative life is officially over. Her face goes completely blank as she tries to process the fact that she's actually attending a royal double date. Josh laughs heartily at her discomfort,
finding her deer-in-the-headlights expression to be his favorite part of dinner. He drops a conversational grenade, asking if she truly believed the princess was the Duke's destined romantic partner.
Manelli nearly chokes on her wine, caught completely off guard by Josh's sharp insight into her internal logic.
She downs her drink in a desperate attempt to hide her flustered state from the Admiral's observant, teasing gaze.
Josh shifts the topic to alcohol tolerance, while Manelli insists that everyone from the north can hold their liquor.
He continues to tease her, suggesting she's the one controlling the Duke's drinking habits like a worried wife.
Manelli contemplates a future far away from this drama, perhaps traveling the world or finding peace in Alcmaeon.
Josh asks if she's found a man worth marrying yet, steering the conversation back to dangerous romantic territory.
A memory of a kind, brown-haired man named Lynn surfaces, reminding her of an answer she still hasn't given. Overwhelmed by questions, spirits, and suitors, Manelli sighs, wishing she could just make a run for the exit.
Josh offers a final, devastating wink, proving that no matter where she runs, his relentless charm will find her.
Josh suggests Manelli move south, claiming she's too delicate for the northern cold. Smooth move, Admiral.
Manelli denies being cold-sensitive, while Josh sips wine and suddenly shifts into a matching tough guy attitude.
Feeling targeted, Manelli wonders why the guest of honor is hovering around her instead of enjoying his own banquet. Josh notes that Setsu seems completely uninterested in the festivities, despite the event being thrown specifically in his honor.
Across the table, Setsu and Princess Canaria dine in an icy silence that could easily freeze the banquet wine.
The Grand Duke maintains his signature brooding stare, looking like he's calculating the tactical disadvantage of royal small talk.
Josh laughs off the tension, while Manelli remains unconvinced that his constant presence is anything but a romantic trap. A brown-haired man stares down his steak in a moment of silent, existential dread over a medium-rare mistake. Josh notices the guest's discomfort and offers medical help, clearly worried the steak has claimed a social victim.
The man reveals he's a priest who avoids meat, politely choosing bread over a high-stakes kitchen intervention.
Manelli bows her head in apology, realizing her administrative oversight just served a holy man a very unholy dinner.
The priest jokes that his lack of a holy glow makes it hard for people to recognize his vocation. Fascinated by his presence, Manelli asks about northern cathedrals, hoping to salvage the conversation after the steak disaster.
The conversation takes a sharp turn when Manelli admits her atheism, prompting the priest to question her lack of faith.
Manelli stands frozen, caught off guard by the priest's direct inquiry into her soul while looking stunningly confused. Metaphors bloom as the priest explains that, to his unique vision, people appear as a forest of living trees.
He describes tree rings left by divine touch, a mystical concept that makes
surrounded by a floral aura. Manelli listens intently to the priest's strange botanical explanation of human spirituality. Josh looks smugly satisfied with himself, while Manelli wonders what exactly he's so proud of in this weird moment.
Manelli realizes that being around the pink-haired admiral means dealing with a level of weirdness she wasn't prepared for. She questions how the priest manages his unique sight while he continues to gesture like a mystical life coach. A sudden, sharp tang sounds as Canaria slams her hand down, clearly fed up with the bizarre turn of dinner. The princess complains about the inappropriate topics, wondering if drawing blood is just a casual northern social habit.
Setsu remains unbothered, coldly asking Canaria if she's finally ready to pack up and head back to the capital.
He suggests she follow Admiral Pasa promptly, revealing Josh's high-ranking title and leaving the princess looking utterly floored.
Josh is revealed as the legendary Mad Dragon of the South, framed by a dramatic ship and swirling ocean power. Manelli experiences a moment of internal cringe at the Admiral's ridiculously intense and over-the-top military nickname. Josh leans back, explaining that his pink hair alone is usually enough to make most people tremble in fear. Canaria is visibly shaken, realizing that the man she's been ignoring is actually a high-stakes Southern legend. Josh poses majestically, revealing his duty is to escort the fire-wielding princess using his own powerful water spirits.
High-pressure water effects fill the hall, effectively turning the formal banquet into a very humid spiritual demonstration.
Canaria looks genuinely horrified by the proximity of the water power, her royal composer dissolving like sugar in tea. Minelli watches the swirling water in awe, realizing she's witnessing a level of magic that isn't in her script. A tiny, adorable fish spirit named Aquarior appears, proving that even a mad dragon has a cute side. Minelli is instantly charmed by the floating fish spirit. She asks if touching the spirit is allowed, while Josh watches her with an uncharacteristically serious and focused expression. Josh seizes the moment, grabbing her shoulders and declaring that Minelli belongs in the South with him. How subtle.
Setsu's hand intercepts the Admiral's reach, delivering a cold order to take the princess and leave immediately. Stunned, Minelli looks up at Setsu as he steps in to end the Admiral's aggressive recruitment campaign. As maids reset the scene, the banquet concludes its first phase with a lingering sense of spiritual and social chaos. The priest approaches Minelli with a polite greeting, his friendly smile hiding the strangeness of their earlier exchange. Minelli looks startled as glowing petals fall around her, adding a layer of mystery to the already confusing night.
A close-up reveals a medical needle being prepared, hinting at a technological advancement that seems strikingly out of place. The priest makes a cryptic comment about her thin needles before quickly dismissing it as talking to himself.
Outside in the cold moonlight, the priest confronts Josh, who is lounging with his usual carefree and arrogant attitude.
Josh delivers a playful wink, maintaining his charming facade even while discussing the high-stakes games of the nobility.
The two men discuss Minelli's purity and charm, finding her to be an absolutely delightful target of their interest.
While Josh appears romantic and cheerful, the narration hints at a much darker and more complex nature beneath.
A terrifying vision of a skeletal reaper reveals that a dangerous person is now completely obsessed with the young lady.
Josh asks his fishy friend for a second opinion on the current state of royal affairs.
Kneeling by the spirit, Josh admits he's been on to the truth since the very first time he saw her.
Minelli stands radiant amidst blue blooms, looking like she's the main character of a high-end shampoo commercial.
Josh summons swirling water, doubting whether she actually chose to be here or was just socially kidnapped. He warns his companion that dealing with that man's daughter is like playing chess with a very unpredictable toddler. Canaria stares ahead with an icy expression, probably wondering why Northern fashion involves so many heavy floral patterns.
From a distance, the men observe Canaria as she stands alone, looking like a very fashionable and disgruntled garden ornament.
Minelli's eyes go wide as she realizes she's addressing royalty. Social anxiety has officially entered the chat.
Setsu walks away, his brooding military aesthetic doing some serious heavy lifting in the dramatic hallway lighting.
Turning back, Setsu calls out to Minelli, his gaze softening just enough to make things legally romantic.
A sharp click sounds as the atmosphere shifts, leaving Minelli feeling like she's walked into a romance novel trap.
Flowers bloom around a blushing Minelli as she wonders if someone just turned up the main character sparkle filter.
She experiences a total internal meltdown, questioning if the Duke is actually flirting or just being northerly polite. While Setsu channels his inner puppy, Minelli finally finds her voice to give him the yes he's seeking.
In a close-up that screams, will they or won't they, she finally addresses him by his personal name, Setsu.
She reflects on how the boy she used to protect has somehow evolved into a very distracting, handsome man. A flashback reveals Manelli apologizing for her lack of foresight. Clearly, she didn't plan for this much romantic tension.
Setsu gently tilts her chin up, proving that he's officially retired from the just friends category of life.
He teases her with a cold water metaphor, making Manelli blush so hard she might actually set the castle on fire. Covering her face, she groans internally over her embarrassing past being dragged out for the Duke's personal amusement.
He holds her hands tight, reminding her of the future she once mapped out for his royal success. Little Manelli worked hard to make him a perfect duke, but she totally forgot to include herself in his future.
Setsu points out the obvious flaw in her plan. What good is a frozen kingdom if she isn't in it?
He kisses her hand and delivers a devastating line, leaving Manelli looking like a deer in high-end headlights.
The Duke requests the exclusive right to his own name, which is basically the nobility version of being official.
He offers a rare, genuine smile, looking far too handsome for someone who lives in a glorified walk-in freezer.
Manelli experiences a peak fangirl moment, hiding her face while her brain short-circuits from all the royal attention.
She screams internally at the realization that her favorite character is actually into her. Fanfic dreams do come true.
Dreaming of wedding bells, she realizes the little brat version of herself is finally winning the romantic lottery.
Memories of his father's elitist trash talk surface, reminding the narrative that being low-blooded used to be a social crime.
Back in her room, Manelli worries about the gossip falling on Setsu if he chooses love over status.
Frustrated by the slow burn pace, she contemplates if being more aggressive would solve her romantic confusion.
A black snake spirit pops up, giving Manelli a heart attack and proving that the North's pest control is failing. She recognizes the noodle-shaped intruder from a previous encounter. This snake has some serious stalking skills. A panicked eek rings out as the spirit is suddenly pulled back into the shadows of the room.
Setsu stands by the window, blushing because his secret spy snake just got busted by his crush.
He pulls out a jewelry box, indicating that he's ready to skip the small talk and go straight to marriage. Smiling down at the velvet box, the Duke looks like he's finally ready to stop being a tactical strategist. Inside, a diamond ring sparkles. The ultimate, "I'm sorry I sent a spy spirit to watch you" apology gift.
Spotting her with the suitcase, Setsu's heart drops. Turns out, being a Grand Duke doesn't prevent massive abandonment issues.
He insists his motives aren't shady, even though he's literally surrounded by ominous, swirling purple shadow energy.
The Duke claims his literal shadow snake was only there out of concern. Typical Northern overprotective behavior, really.
He covers his face in shame, realizing that his attempt at being a guardian spirit was just creepy pet territory. A quick tap echoes through the room as Manelli catches him in the middle of his existential romantic crisis. She connects the dots while Setsu breaks into a cold sweat. Nothing kills the mood like being caught spy snaking.
He admits he got so flustered that he accidentally recalled his spirit right in front of her.
Smooth move, Duke.
Setsu worries that she still hasn't figured out what his spirit actually is. Ironic, considering it's usually in her room.
The original story where he falls for the blonde princess looms overhead, threatening to derail their current momentum. Manelli walks through the night, wondering if the confession was romantic or just Northern brother platonic vibes. Her self-doubt is interrupted as she literally bumps into Josh, who offers a cheeky "oh dear" to her distress. Manelli freezes as a familiar, slightly annoying voice interrupts her solitary walk through the castle hallway. Josh appears with a refill, proving that his Mad Dragon title probably refers to his impressive alcohol tolerance. Thump thump. Her heart is doing gymnastics as she debates whether to accept the Duke's very official romantic upgrade.
Manelli experiences a stiff-neck realization that dating the boss involves a massive, socially awkward status gap.
She decides that logic is for people without handsome dukes and resolves to grab his hand immediately.
A sudden, sharp realization cuts through her romantic daydream, leaving her looking like she'd totally forgot the stove on.
Chirac! The scene shifts as golden hair catches the light, signaling the arrival of a major royal headache.
Manelli spots Canaria sneaking into a room.
Tuck! A door clicks shut as
Inside, Canaria offers a cryptic warning while Setsu questions her lack of fear. Honestly, her audacity is impressive.
Canaria remains smug, betting on his restraint while Setsu's massive shadow snake rises to test that theory. Kaya! The princess's fire magic flares up in a
Defiant, Canaria realizes the Duke's power is even scarier than the rumors, and she's literally playing with.
The princess fumes internally, blaming Manelli for stealing everyone's attention and planning a very petty revenge. Josh lurks in the background, casually offering to ignore Canaria's suspicious behavior. Canaria strides away with her arms crossed.
While Josh delivers a final monster warning, Canaria smiles. Her villainous checklist is apparently going quite well.
Back at the table, Manelli is looking dangerously tipsy, clearly losing the battle against Northern vintage wine. Josh offers. He starts questioning her loyalty to the frozen North, acting like a very handsome travel agent for recruitment. Manelli's brain hits the error screen as her body becomes heavy. Manelli, 0. Josh plants seeds of doubt, reminding her that Setsu's future family won't have room for a mere aide.
Heartbroken and drunk, she contemplates the second wife life before deciding.
A grim memory surfaces of the day the former Archduke died saving her mother, cementing her eternal guilt.
Seizing the emotional opening, Josh makes his move, inviting the vulnerable young lady to run away south.
Manelli blinks through the wine fog, trying to process the idea of a life without snow and snakes.
A sun-soaked beach fantasy appears, looking like a tropical vacation ad designed to lure her away. As she drifts off, she mumbles about Canaria, her internal logic center finally shutting down for the night. Face down on the table, Manelli finally passes out, leaving her at the mercy of the Admiral's plan. The narration warns that Josh is a tactical menace who doesn't care about the means to reach goals.
A mysterious voice questions if the Duke truly loves her, casting a shadow over the snowy palace balcony.
Manelli mumbles incoherently in her sleep, her subconscious still fighting the urge to stay in the North.
She reflects on her loyalty one last time, refusing to go despite the princess's interference with Setsu.
Swipe! Josh reaches out to stroke her hair, noting that her stubbornness is just as annoying as ever.
He whispers promises of a world without envy, but is interrupted by a very unhappy, authoritative shout. Lin, the head of security, enters the chat looking like he's about to file a very violent report.
Huik! The atmosphere sharpens as the guard steps in, his cape fluttering with pure, not-on-my-watch energy.
Lin introduces himself with icy professionalism, demanding an explanation for the Admiral's suspicious tableside manners. Unfazed, Josh claims he was just listening to a drunk lady's ramblings. Classic, I'm not doing anything, defense. The Admiral offers to escort her home, which is about as trustworthy as a wolf offering walking a sheep.
Lin shuts that down immediately, ordering the pink-haired flirt to step aside and leave the lady to him.
Josh teases the guard about his obvious feelings, while Lin swears on his honor to keep things professional.
A tense standoff ensues between the playful Admiral and the stern guard over a very sleeping Manelli. Recognizing he's been cock-blocked by castle security, Josh finally retreats with a casual wave and a sigh.
Lin gently tries to wake her, looking far more concerned than a strictly professional security head should be.
A tender hand brushes her face as he admits she looked beautiful tonight, almost like someone from another world. He remembers her radiant in her noble gown, a sight that clearly did some permanent damage to her composure.
The cold moon hangs overhead, witnessing the quiet, complicated emotions brewing within the castle's frozen walls.
Lin carries the unconscious Manelli away, walking right past a silent, brooding Setsu who is watching everything.
Setsu stands in the hallway, looking like he's trying to win a gold medal in the brooding Olympics.
Lin arrives with a sleeping Manelli, offering a formal greeting while carrying her like a very delicate pink-haired package. The Duke questions her condition, while Lin explains that the lady simply opted for an emergency nap on the terrace. Lin admits he was moving her, adding a cheeky hint that Setsu's romantic intensity is the source of her fatigue.
With a quiet, professional confirmation, Lin yields his place, his stoic expression hiding whatever internal disappointment he might feel.
Setsu takes over the heavy lifting, cradling the unconscious Manelli with a gaze that's far too soft for a duke.